Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we'll be talking about the book Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. And that's right, this is the same Jennette McCurdy that released the nonfiction slash memoir, I'm Glad That My Mother's Dead, something like that. I never read that book. However, this one was brought to my attention by a good friend of mine having read it after reading the memoir, and she wanted somebody to talk to about it. She did not have the highest opinion of this book, especially compared to the memoir. But because of some of the things that she said, I was interested in reading it just to see the context and the content for myself. And boy, I could not have anticipated just what was in this book and uh, the way that things were depicted. I just get ready for some spicy opinions because they will be here. There's some questionable choices that were made in this book that also make it more difficult to discuss, but it will be discussed nonetheless for what I saw in it. There are certain parts about this book that do kind of mimic My Dark Vanessa in some cases, and maybe not mimic, maybe it's just like mirror, or maybe it's just like because the situation is just so common that that's just how it is. But there are some situations that are very, very close to My Dark Vanessa and just the setup without actually being the same. However, before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first video of the month, we go through some of those submissions and just see what you guys could come up with. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit the first chapter and the cover, that chapter will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work. Another way to be featured, if you do not have a book that is ready for publication, or I mean, even if it is, there is now the series called Crit This, where I will read through something that you submit and give feedback to the best of my abilities. We'll discuss it, and I mean, maybe it'll give you something to think about. Maybe it's totally useless. That's just the the way that feedback works. But that is an option as well. And then if you would like me to read anything, there is a place, whether it is yours or it is just something you want to see my opinion on, there's a place to submit books to suggest for me to read, also on the link tree. The final thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books. And my newest novel, the Legend of Bill Cassidy, Book One, American Princess, should hopefully be coming out this summer. That is the aim. We'll see if it follows through with that. With that said, let's jump into this book. And something that I'm going to rage against later, and I'm going to bring it up now because I know when it comes up in the discussion points. This is set in Alaska, and I actually am from Alaska. I lived in Alaska for 10 years, and I lived in Anchorage specifically. And this book is set in Anchorage, Alaska. And I'm sure other people have gone through this or do go through this when a book is set in their hometown. The inaccuracies abound. There was no reason for this to be set in Alaska based on the way that it is used. And it reads like LA. It reads like somebody from LA writing and choosing to be in Alaska when Alaska is nothing like that. And I've read other books do a similar thing, and it's just so annoying. And we'll get there. We'll get there to some of my comments on, like, please. It would have been so easy to make this Alaska and to make it feel like Alaska, but then you actually have to do setting and world building and for some reason people hate that kind of thing. So, but we'll get into it. The reason I think that I saw when I was looking as to why this was set in Alaska is the author chose it for the isolation. So it could have worked for part of the theme of this book if it was actually utilized, which it was not. So yeah. Another thing that I'm going to warn before we get started in this book is, if you didn't catch it already with the reference to My Dark Vanessa, this is a story about a student and a teacher relationship from the perspective of the student. And I've got some spicy opinions in regards to this book and how it is written that are not necessarily the common thread of the feedback if you look at the Goodreads reviews. So I'll be looking forward to the comments in I'll be looking forward to your guys' thoughts and comments on this as we go forward. So, with that said, here is the first page for vibes on how it is written. Quote, it's bad form to groan when a guy's going down on you. I know that. But right now, it's hard not to. You taste so good, he says, licking his lips. Thanks. Randy Jollop's fingers clamp down on my splayed out thighs, his death grip tightening. His cunnilingus technique is underwhelming. Eyes shut reverently. Occasional, slimy tongue that loop-de-loops over and over like a carnival ride, mechanical and passionless. You know what? Why don't you just come up here? You don't want me to keep going? He asks, cocking his head. No, let's just get to it. Okay, if you're sure. Randy tries and fails to hide his excitement as he whips a condom out from his pocket, then runs his clammy hands through his mop of hair. The same mop of hair I found so mysterious when we met over the summer at the 4th of July party, the same mop of hair that shielded his hooded eyes while we threw back red, white, and blue jello shots, while we ate corn on the cob with too much butter, while we swam in Goose Lake and watched illegal fireworks burst in the sky. The mop of hair I found so intriguing, so seductive, and that I now find just greasy. You need help with that? I ask as Randy struggles to rip open the wrapper. Would you? He chucks it at me. I tear it open and chuck it back at him. He kicks off his boxers and discards them in the corner. I close my eyes and start moving my hands down, imagining I'm somewhere else, somewhere with someone I connect with, someone who gets me and who I get. It's a shame. For a second, I really thought Randy could be the guy. He's quiet and moody. I thought that must mean he has thoughts so riveting that he couldn't utter them out loud or he'd spoil them. Your tits are beautiful, he says. Thanks. So beautiful, he repeats, mashing them and squishing them between his fingers like a kid with a ball of Play-Doh. Your whole body is. Thanks, I say again, hesitantly. Maybe it is beautiful, my body. I wouldn't know. Since in the 2 years that I've had this new version of it, I've been much more consumed with dealing with it than appreciating it, shaving it or scraping it or strapping it in or exfoliating it or lathering it or shoving a coarse cotton plug into it, always doing something to stop my body from doing what it wants to do, oozing or bursting or bleeding, making too much hair in the wrong places and not enough in the right ones. Immediately, we are introduced to not only her discomfort with herself, but also her lack of desire for sex. And still, we have this inability in her to say no when she feels like she needs to be doing this for one reason or another. Quote, it's not for lack of trying. They're trying, I'm trying too, but no matter how much spit or cum, how much dry humping or making out, going down or eating out, petting or edging, sex always falls short. Feels clunky and perfunctory, clumsy and performative, a blatant reminder of the misshapen puzzle pieces that are private parts. And afterwards, they rebuckle their pants and reclaps my bra and accept in the awkward silence the itchy fact that I settled for pleasure when I wanted connection, an itchy fact that I refused to scratch by saying it out loud. So instead, we go and get ice cream. This is an interesting observation because in conversation and observation myself, in talking about some of the books that I've talked about or watching people, how much pressure there is put on having to want sex or you're somehow some kind of freak. You have to have sex or you are a freak is often how it comes across. And if you haven't had sex or you haven't wanted to be like a sex fiend, then you're also a sort of freak because everybody wants to engage in their carnal desires, right? And even as a teenager, there is this pressure that you can never say no or take your time or else you're a weirdo. And in part, that feels like it's here too with this character who's 17. This narrator doesn't seem ready or interested in having sex at all, but is going through the motions of it and seemingly from not only expectations, but also because she associates having a connection with people to being sex. And that's obviously not true. In the midst of all of this, it also seems like it's because she is looking for love and to fit in after her mom said that she was hard to love. And so she's given into having sex with people as an easy way to try to find love. Quote, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. My mom called me hard to love when I was 7, and the phrase always stuck with me, even though she swore she didn't mean it 20 minutes later. And by 2 days later, she denied that she'd said it at all. Problem solved. I'm not hard to love. I just need a lot and am a lot. And then I grabbed a coloring book that I wanted but thought better of it and set it back on the shelf. Maybe wanting things is what makes me a lot. If I could just want less, I'd be the right amount of person. The amount I'm supposed to be, the not a lot amount, the easy to love amount. It's an approach that I've taken with me into my 3 relationships, if you can call them that, which you probably can't. I've tried to not ask for much or expect even less. I've tried to make them feel funny when they all say the same jokes, feel smart when they all have the same point of view, feel right when they are quick to Google search confirmations that they are not. I've tried to laugh on cue, smile on cue, compliment on cue. I've watered down my personality to a cardboard cutout version of myself, and I thought that was fine so long as my body showed up in 4D with bells and whistles ready to grab and grope and lick and suck. But the more I tried, the more I realized it's not possible. A body can't just connect on command, or find a spark that isn't there, or force a non existent chemistry. You might be able to squeeze a couple of cheap thrills out of it, but eventually the body says no more. Randy and Waldo, the narrator, finish having sex and break up amicably because neither of them really care about each other and it's just like whatever. Waldo then returns home, internet shops because she's a shopaholic as a way to fill the void inside of her from just her lack of connection. And she knows very well that this doesn't soothe the pain inside of her, but she says that she likes to pretend that it does. So she's buying Sephora and Shein, so expensive makeup and cheap clothing. So something that is a constant throughout this book is that it's going to use like therapy language from a character who is doing self-destructive behaviors, and because of the therapy language it obviously knows that the character, and this isn't like an adult looking back, this is the teenager as the teenager currently, so she's got all of the language. It's like she's been to therapy, has been told all of these things, and yet she acknowledges them fully and then still just does everything that she shouldn't be doing. Now in creative writing class, because it's always a writing class, she's looking at her teacher, Mr. Corgi, who is saying how he's such a failure that he teaches high school creative writing class rather than being a prize novelist like he'd always dreamed himself to be. So he's having like just this self admonishing monologue in class about how much of a failure he is. He's got faded looks, according to Waldo, but she can tell that he was attractive at one point when he was younger. He's like in his early 40s. And she is super into him specifically because he's up there saying how much of a failure he is and having kind of a depressive episode. Quote, "My vagina pulses. It's not about him being a failure. I don't know whose vagina would pulse at that. It's about him being able to call himself one, him being able to be honest about his regrets, his status, his shortcomings, not mask them the way that everyone else does, pretending to be fulfilled by their 9 to 5 and their once a year vacation to wherever had a discount on kayak, by the pride of paying their taxes on time, or always having a sheet of stamps in a just in case drawer next to a tube of neosporin and an extra phone charger. This is someone who has faced head on the disappointing reality of where their life landed and is willing to be direct and vulnerable about it." Also, this quote is probably important to Waldo's character when you compare it to the opening scene, which is superficial. She's looking for authenticity. She also doesn't know how to recognize authenticity, but she knows that her peers pretend to be people that they're not and try to look more successful than they actually are. So then, when she's seeing an adult in a different generation, likely a millennial, who is also just like, I'm a loser, look at how this, I'm not even trying to pretend that I'm something greater than I am, she thinks that's authenticity rather than somebody having a crash out. But it does in the way that it's presented, it does look like somebody who thinks that acknowledging or calling one's own feelings of failure or insulting oneself looks like some sort of authenticity because none of her peers would ever just say that they are garbage. This chapter feels very rushed, by the way, when it comes to introducing Mr. Corgi, because you know how this is going to go. It's just in order to get the relationship started. And I'm going to try to minimize my references to My Dark Vanessa because I think this book needs to be discussed on its own for what it is. But one thing to pay attention to, or to note, I guess, and the difference between this and My Dark Vanessa is just how long it takes to get the relationship between Vanessa and Mr. Strain started, because that book is actually about Vanessa and her relationships around her and her isolation in general. So it doesn't rush to get to connecting Mr. Strain and Vanessa. However, this book is specifically about the sexual relationship of Mr. Corgi and Waldo, and in a way it fetishizes it, and in a way it is obsessed with sex in the same way that the book Tampa by Alyssa Nutting was obsessed with sex. Like Waldo reads like the same sort of character as Celeste from Tampa, and you'll see more of that as we go forward, other than, her introduction was immediately sexual. Anyway, getting back to Half His Age, which is also a kind of a kink phrase for this sort of thing, and also the cover does exactly the opposite of what something like Lolita tried to do, which this is specifically sexualizing the young girl. I don't think that's helpful. If you look up Half His Age on Goodreads, you'll find the top 2 or 3 responses that come up are all erotica. So that specifically makes this sexual in multiple ways. Fetishizing it, no, if it wants to be a comment on inappropriate relationships, I don't think this is the way to go. But I also don't think that this book succeeds in trying to make a conversation about that. We'll get into where I think this book actually builds its conversation here shortly. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, meanwhile, so far, this feels more like the desperation of someone from a generation lost to reality, lost to authenticity, and desperate for connection to look for it anywhere. As we go back to the quotes that I gave before, she has talked about how she is not really herself and how she primed herself to be this perfect thing that hopefully, if she erased herself, then she would find somebody who would want her and she would have that connection. So she even acknowledges that she is not authentic either, but she is somehow looking for authenticity. Waldo The next thing we learn about Waldo is that she works at Victoria's Secret and is doing a bra fitting for an older woman. Now, there are a couple of issues with this that I put in my notes later, but I might as well bring it up now. It looks like on a quick Google search that for the most part, you can't work at Victoria's Secret unless you're 18 years old because of the nature of the work, but you would especially never be doing a bra fitting as a minor on anybody. I don't know why this book made Waldo 17 when in pretty much every other aspect this character is no longer a minor, other than possible manipulation tactic to pull in the reader for something specific. Yeah, anyway, quote, most of the stores at the mall have shuttered over the past few years. Dick's Sporting Goods, Barnes & Noble, Claire's, because no one plays outside, reads, or lets a 16-year-old pierce their kids' ears anymore. So many stores are gone that the mall has started to feel post-apocalyptic any time other than Black Friday and the day after Christmas. Empty store after empty store, carpets ripped up, gates yanked down, 75% off, everything must go signs hanging crooked in the windows. The last remaining survivors are the ones that cater to selling women's self-esteem in jars. Lush, a bottle, Bath and Body Works, a powder, Sephora, a handbag, Michael Kors, or a bra, Victoria's Secret. We also have a food court. The woman that she is with says that she is great, and when Waldo shows a low opinion of herself, she is asked if she knows her worth. This launches Waldo into a spiral of how humans are not worth anything at all. Quote, the question takes me off guard, especially coming from this woman who's standing in front of me topless with fried ends and poor boundaries. Also, I don't know the answer, or even the question, really. What does it mean? How does one know their worth? What constitutes worth? I'm 17 with bad grades. I live in a 900 square foot apartment with a single mom. Most of the things I ingest are sold in 7-Eleven. And I know people say worth is a thing that you're born with, a thing that you just intrinsically have by nature of being a human being, but I'm not so sure. People are too precious about what it means to be human. We're just people. We're just gross little people who shit and fart and fuck, who eat too much dairy and search for the meaning in our iPhones and carry at least one undiagnosed mental illness. People who maybe aren't worth much at all. But that all feels like too much to tell her, so I just nod my head and say, yeah, I think I do. This again feels very much like that everything is inauthentic and so it is worthless mindset. It is the mindset of somebody who has grown up in an artificial world, and so everything, including people, are all worthless. Nihilism included people being nothing, and I can't entirely say what that is because I didn't really grow up with that sort of messaging and I haven't really internalized that sort of messaging. I'm the kind of the schmuck that thinks that everybody has some sort of internal worth and deserves to be loved, but I'm wrong about a lot of things. That's why I'm called an idiot. And according to Waldo, people are more and more fake to sell things, but in part, that's why I feel sometimes that the younger generation is kind of lost and not even searching for meaning necessarily because there's the opinion that there is no meaning, there is no purpose, there is no value. So who the frick cares? I do think that there is hope. I do think there's hope that there's meaning, but it's like having given up already. And then when you're 17 and you don't have like a future, you don't have a belief that there is any reason to continue, that you should continue, then it kind of makes everything in general more difficult because, like, why are you going to do anything if you think everything is worthless? And I do think that that is a message that many in the younger generation are receiving, which then I think it just further encourages inauthenticity and like fakeness because you're now just faking things to get ahead because if there's no purpose, if there's no value, then like being a con artist doesn't matter. Taking from other people doesn't matter. Killing other people doesn't matter. Using other people doesn't matter. Everything is just a tool in order to get you higher and higher and higher. And that's pretty much like what I see happen. At home, Waldo's mom is working late, though she bought her a brownie. It's another quote on superficiality. I stuffed the note in a jewelry box and the brownie in my mouth, and then changed into some sweats and an oversized Nirvana t shirt, even though I don't know a single one of their songs. Waldo watches a bunch of YouTube videos that I think further illustrates the childhood she grew up with. Quote, I watch the vlogs of filthy rich teenagers with embarrassing hairdos gifting strangers with Ferraris courtesy of their YouTube royalties, then switch to a string of 9/11 videos where people jump off of the burning towers to their deaths. I watch mid-30s women organizing their sock drawers. I watch old Olympic gymnastics routines and Jubilee lineup videos where people test their gaydars or guess who's had plastic surgery. I watch sea otters snuggle and a mother being interrogated about the murder of her child. She confesses to drowning the toddler in the backyard kiddie pool. Without her parents or family, but with the internet and continually going between the superficial and the violent, which would inspire that feeling of worthlessness that she's talked about earlier. Because, like, when you're going between 9/11 survivors or 9/11 victims who were jumping out of buildings with shopping sprees and give away Ferraris from totally fake people, like you're going to start associating these things to be on the same level of artificiality. She tries to soothe the emptiness she feels again by buying more cheap stuff. Her tab opening and purchasing is called frantic, ravenous, and violent. She immediately feels guilty and passes out while waiting for the confirmation emails for her purchases to come in. Back at school, Mr. Corgi offers her something different than she can find for herself. Quote, Mr. Corgi's second class is a lesson on how great poets find the universal in the particular. Spittle flies and his hand gesticulates, yet despite his passion, students don't give a shit. They play footsie, they read their manicures, they make sketches in their notebooks, they don't hear him and they don't see him. But I do. I see the sadness in his eyes and the deep desire for his words to resonate, the desire to connect. Maybe that's all passion is, sadness plus desire to connect. And she fantasizes, quote, I fantasize that I lift his shirt and touch his paunch, watch it jiggle, study the curly hairs on his belly and lick them straight. I fantasize that I crouch down under the desk and unbuckle his pants, hearing the deviant jingle of his belt as they drop to the floor, then reach into his boxers and cup his wrinkly balls, tickle them, toy with them until they're taut and hopeful again. I've never wanted someone's gross parts before, only the good parts, the smooth parts, the clean ones, the buttoned and brushed and buckled ones. But with him, I want it all, even the gross parts, especially the gross parts. Now, we're going to see throughout this book, and she continues to do this later, that she associates gross with authenticity because, like, I think again it goes back to the facade of perfection, the facade of clean, and so then she associates disgust with honesty or nasty and gross with truth. It goes back to this idea that the curated is fake. She has already said as much as she shops at the mall. She has already said as much with the shops at the mall, with her peers who try to look a certain way with their fake tans. And what she sees in Mr. Corgi's appearance and what she's fantasizing about, she's describing as gross. and she is confusing it with real and authentic, which she thinks will give her more connection, which is why she is fantasizing about those things specifically. Mr. Corgi gives an assignment. Waldo notices that he's married because of a ring. Enter now Waldo's friend Franny, who is considered her best friend but not really. And Franny asks why Waldo never shared that she broke up with Randy. Waldo just hates this girl that is called her best friend so much, and she believes that Franny is a fake person to her, but personally, I think that Waldo does a lot of projection, and then Waldo maintains this relationship with Franny because otherwise she would be a friendless loser. So, and she doesn't want to be seen as like less than Franny when she already thinks so little of Franny. This is when she's decided that Franny is actually a fake friend. Quote, "This time I actually went to church with them, borrowed one of Franny's puffy-sleeved pastry dresses that itched all through sacrament meeting. Then I attended class with her, and the lecture was on the befriending the friendless and how generous that is, what good charity work it is, how you curry favor with God for doing it. And I looked over and Franny's eyes were lit up with recognition, hearing herself in the words as she sat at the edge of her seat, almost falling from the sheer eager do-gooderness. I realized that I was the friendless that she had befriended, a hole punch on her God stamped card, a fixer upper to her savior. I was charity work." She highlights how they're different. Franny has money and a car given to her by her parents, and Waldo worked for her beater that she has. They go on their ways to their separate homes at the end of the day. So this chapter was really just to introduce Franny and who Franny is to her. She's not really important, but kind of just for me it felt like filler. In class, people are sharing the poems that they did for Mr. Corgi's class. Waldo is called on. She gives her reading and states that the teacher clearly liked it. After class, she goes to the bathroom and masturbates to her teacher's Facebook photos while also trying to create a fantasy where he is unhappy in his marriage, even though she can't because he looks so genuinely happy in all of his pictures with his wife and his child. Quote, "They all look so joyous, the joy might rip them open from the inside out. I zoom in on Mr. Corgi's face, like if I get close enough, I'll see the truth, the fatigue, the disconnect, the sign that maybe this was the one picture that worked out of the 2-hour shoot, out of a batch of 300 that he and his wife splayed out on the kitchen table, deliberating, frustrated with shots where the kid screamed or she scowled or he looked too tired, frustrated that they weren't finding any good ones until this one. This one worked. This one was the clear front runner, the only front runner, the most convincing shot, the one that sold Happy Family best. But I don't see any sign of that on Mr. Corgi's face. So I zoom back out, staring at the obnoxious, genuine joy radiating out from the family unit, a kind of familial joy I've never known, and suddenly what felt good 20 seconds ago curdles inside of me. So she finds a picture without the wife in it and imagines that she is the one making him laugh inside of that picture. This is her desperation for a connection, not knowing how to make it and seeing other people with it, then wanting what they have for herself. And rather than trying to figure out how to do that for herself, she's fantasizing about how to take it from somebody else. Waldo then buys more stuff. She works on her next creative writing assignment, which is writing about previous stages of life. One she remembers when she was 5. Her mom would make her up to look just like her, wanting the both of them to look like they were doing better off when the ex-husband slash her dad came to visit. So more falsification here in her background, and she understands that her mother was falsifying their life in order to show off to dad. Dad would come over and mom and dad would have sex and she would listen through the walls on purpose, her ear to the wall. Why are we doing this? At the age of 7, she was made fun of for living in a mobile home, her dad not coming around anymore, and her mom has a revolving door of boyfriends, and the 2 friends that she had moved away. Her last memory that she talks about for this assignment is when she was 9 and everyone in the world is fake. Quote, "People comment wherever we go that mom and I look like sisters. Older women ask how old she was when she had me. When she says 16, the women say, oh, and try to smile their best smiles, but I can tell that they want to shake their heads or say tisk tisk or both. I'm starting to notice that a lot. How people say one thing and hide another. Like mom, sometimes she'll show off a new blouse and act like she's excited about the fabric or the neckline, but I can always spot the new bruise peeking out from under it. I want to say something about it, but I compliment the blouse instead. So I guess I do it too. Mom's boyfriend broke up with her. She sobs into my lap. I stroke her hair. It smells like VO5 shampoo, the strawberries and cream scent. She cries and says I'm all that she has, that ever since she saw that plus sign on that stick, she knew that she wanted to keep me, or that she couldn't bear to get rid of me, which is really the same thing. I don't know what she means exactly, but I know that they don't sound the same to me. Wanting to keep something is very different than not being able to get rid of it. She's about to self soothe with more shopping, but masturbates to Mr. Corgi instead. This really is like a female incel, but kind of different because she's not actually involuntarily celibate. She's just not with Mr. Corgi. Obviously, she was having sex at the beginning of this book, so she can get it if she wants it, but she's obsessing over this guy that she doesn't and can't have. I'll explain a bit more at the end. Oh, yeah, I also mean this in the way of like the book Incel that I read last year, which go and watch the book discussion on that as well. I think it is a valuable discussion to be had. So if you haven't read that one or watched that video before, definitely check it out. However, be noted that at the beginning of this, she said that she uses sex in an attempt to have intimacy, to imitate intimacy, but knows that that's not what it grants. Meanwhile, she is using masturbation as a way to force having a relationship with Mr. Corgi into her version of reality and create intimacy where there is none. And that's how you can look at all of her masturbation about Mr. Corgi. Is it's all a way of her creating a facade of and tricking herself into feeling like she has a relationship with Mr. Corgi, she has intimacy with Mr. Corgi that she actually doesn't have. In class, 6 weeks after it started, Mr. Corgi asks Waldo to stay behind and compliments her writing. Quote, well, good, he says. You have something a lot of other students, most of my other students, don't have. Do you know what that is? I shake my head. A voice, he says. That's a rarity, he says. And you have one. You have a strong voice, he says. And yet, right now, in his presence, I am unable to say a word. Waldo comes home to her mother crying because her boyfriend broke up with her again. Waldo can't see herself in the way that she is right now, judging her mother. Quote, I didn't. Mom hadn't aged out of a habit of falling in love with unavailable men. She creates and nurses a fantasy in her mind of what the guy could be, what the two of them could be together, instead of living in the reality of what he is, what they are. Waldo mentions her mom has a cycle of intense depression, loses everything, including her job, then kicks back up when she gets a new boyfriend. Mom says that she is going to spend more time around the house with Waldo and make her a number one priority, and tells Waldo that she is going to swear off men for a while because all they do is ruin your life. As her mom says Waldo is a priority, Waldo agrees with her, saying, I know you're going to be better. But this just harkens back to when she said that she agrees. But this just harkens back to the opinion that Waldo has that she feels like when she just agrees with stuff, it means that she is just giving up. At school, Waldo rushes to find Mr. Corgi because her friend Franny said that Mr. Corgi didn't admire her writing for real, but just found her interesting because her life sucks, and so he pities her. And now Waldo is taking that as a personal insult and needs to get on Mr. Corgi for such an insult to her. When she finds Mr. Corgi, she confronts him about it and he just compliments her writing again. She says that she is super angry and he says, I'm not blowing smoke at you. Tragedy doesn't make somebody a good writer. Good writing is how a story is told, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. So I'm not admiring you because of your life. I'm admiring your writing. This is exactly the affirmation that Waldo wanted to hear, and her anger settles. Quote, I soften, and as I settle into myself, I realize that he's the one who made it happen. He took my unmovable rage and made it pliable, dissolves it into something tender. He took the thing that controls me and he controlled it. He is the secret, the key, the answer. This is also why I'm saying that this makes me think of the incel book. She's looking for the solve of all of her problems in a hookup. Well, not a hookup, but like Anon thought that women would make his life valuable if only he could have sex, it would solve everything. She's looking for Mr. Corgi as the person to give her life meaning by giving it authenticity, which is not going to happen. And you see this obsession with him growing in her. He ends this scene by making her obsession worse when his messenger bag strap snaps. He says that it's old and his wife wants him to get a new messenger bag, but he doesn't really want to. And Waldo says, because you can't get rid of it? And he says, no, it's because I want to keep it. This harkens back to her comment about the difference between can't get rid of it or wanting to keep it. And the key of this is the choice of keeping something that others would throw out. And that is important to Waldo, because rather than using something because you are stuck with it, you are actively choosing to keep something that others would possibly throw away, and she associates herself with that. So Waldo is seeing the man that she puts so much high opinion in, putting value in something that the world would throw away, and she sees that as ubiquitous to her in a way. When she gets home, Mom has made up with her boyfriend, and she says that she wants Waldo to meet him. Waldo is not really happy or excited about that, but she doesn't think highly of her mom or any of her mom's boyfriends, so she does kind of want some of her mom's opinion, some of her mom's affection. Waldo's then working at Victoria's Secret, working when Mr. Corgi approaches. Now, this is a bad decision regardless, but you should never approach your students as they work in a lingerie store randomly. That is a red flag. He says that he is at the mall to look for toys for his child, but the toy store is closed. Waldo tries to impress Mr. Corgi by being an edgy pick-me, her words, and he doesn't laugh. She is honored that he cares about her enough to be disappointed in her bad joke. And then Mr. Corgi tells her that he told his wife about her, and they both want to have her over for dinner. This is so weird. Waldo is like, really? And he winks like 6 times as they're standing there talking. It's a wink that just undoes her, and this is just, like, so weird. So, this feels like trying really hard to make Mr. Corgi appear as this bad person, because this is something that he should not be doing, clearly. But I say this because this book does not know how to make Mr. Corgi look like a predator. Now, in this situation, possibly he should have said, my wife would love to meet you and your parents, and so she could say, like, I don't have a dad but my mom. And because, like, no teacher is ever going to freaking ask a teenager to come over to their house for dinner except for sussy reasons. Now, if you ask the family to come over for dinner so you can meet their mom because, you know, you're getting to know their writing, you kind of care about them as a troubled kid, that makes sense. But just like asking a teenager, let alone a teenager who is working in a lingerie store, it's all very questionable at best. But the way that the rest of the story goes is so sussy. It is so sussy. You're gonna see, and not in the Mr. Corgi way. It's the way that it is written that makes Waldo the sussy one. You've seen the thumbnail. You've seen the title of this. Waldo is a predator. But okay. I'm already crashing out. We're not even there yet. So, because Mr. Corgi invited her over for dinner, I'm over here sitting freaking knowing what this book is supposed to be at this point, being like, are they going to be swingers? Is the wife in on this? Waldo has just bought a bunch of products to make herself up for the dinner date with the Corgis. We never see her mom, like, see her getting ready for anything. This could have been a statement of some kind, especially as before when she said, like, she fakes up to make herself up into something to be somebody that she hopes other people will want and accept. I don't know, but that statement kind of doesn't exist, isn't there? Waldo then goes over to the Corgi's house for dinner and meets the wife. She tells a story about how they met and embarrasses him a little. You know, the wife is. The wife also asks Waldo if she's got her eyes on any boys at school, and at this, she suggests that she sort of does, but he is unavailable. Corgi's kid then starts crying, so the wife gets up to go and put him back to bed. Mr. Corgi and Waldo share a look of awkward silence, and she calls it intimacy. Then the wife returns and encourages Waldo to pursue the guy that she has a crush on because high school relationships don't even last that long, and it's likely that she's next in line anyway to get with that guy because they're so superficial. I mean, I don't think that's a great. I know she's trying to be encouraging, but like if you're like, you're really into that guy? Well, don't worry. All high school relationships are so short-lived that you can jump on that next. And then what? Hers is short-lived too? What if she wants that guy for the long run? I mean, it's really not encouraging to talk like that. Also, encouraging her to be a bit of a homewrecker there. When Waldo thanks Mr. Corgi for dinner, she also says that she'll try it with that boy at school and gives him a wink. Then she also drops her phone number so that he can call or text her anytime. It's now Thanksgiving, and Waldo is spending it with Franny's family because her mom spends it elsewhere and doesn't take her. Why? This is. I know that there could be this whole thing made up with like abandon and neglect and like mom chasing after tail and forgetting her daughter and all that, but it doesn't feel fully fleshed out for this and just feels like an easy way for mom to just not be in the picture and to not have to deal with mom at all. So while she's spending the time with while she's spending the time with Franny, she gets a call from Mr. Corgi, who is also spending the holidays alone because his mother-in-law doesn't like him and his wife goes to spend the holidays with the mother-in-law without him, which I think you should probably have a discussion with your spouse so you're not leaving your spouse alone on the holidays. Maybe you could talk to your parents about not being a dick to your chosen partner and the father of your child. That might be good, but uh, no, nah, she just apparently abandons him every holiday to go spend time with her family. That's not going to cause a rift at all. He's obviously so affected by this abandonment that he drinks on the holidays to self-soothe, and now he is calling a teenager because he is so freaking lonely. Waldo offers that they hang out and do something while his wife is out of town, and Mr. Corgi immediately is like, no, I'm busy. And it should be responsible. He thanks her for talking to him a bit and then hangs up. Waldo licks her ego and returns to Franny's family, moping that she was turned down. She is then at work on Black Friday. Her mom appears and is just trying on underwear in front of her daughter to this point that she doesn't even feel like the same character from the previous chapters about talking about how she wants to be a better mother. Quote, she pulls the curtain shut behind her and flings it open once again. She's wearing the first look, a white chiffon slip with black polka dots. You hate it. I can see by your snow scrunch, see, she says. Well, don't try and stop scrunching now that I called you out. I saw. I can't unsee. She swooshes the curtain shut and changes into the next one, a baby doll style with a gaudy floral print. I thought you didn't like floral prints. Well, I don't, but Tony does, she says. People always say that bullcrap about how it shouldn't matter what the guy thinks is sexy, that you should dress for yourself or whatever, but the truth is, I feel sexy when I'm his ideal version of me. I feel like my best self when I'm what he wants. Maybe that's not healthy, but what do you want, health or honesty? She strikes a pose, ass shoved out, back arched, seductive mouth, bedroom eyes, really trying to give this floral print a fighting chance. It's bad, she answers for me, then yanks it off and shuts the curtain to try on the next one, a barely there maroon bikini set, the bottom a stringy thong, the top a push-up that hikes her breasts up and shoves them together. We're talking about boundary issues here with this family, because whose parent tries on lingerie in front of their teenaged daughter? I mean, I'm not saying that this is the most functional family that has ever existed. I'm not even saying that this family is mildly functional, but like, ugh. I think that the relationship between mom and daughter here is much more interesting than whatever the pursuit is of Mr. Corgi, which maybe she should try to be looking for stability in Mr. Corgi as opposed to whatever it is she thinks she's chasing. She's just lustful, honestly. After dealing with her mom, Waldo gets a text message from Mr. Corgi saying that he's actually up to go on that walk with her if she is. She meets with Mr. Corgi and they exchange stories about themselves, and Mr. Corgi complains nonsensically about how boring Anchorage actually is. Quote, were you nervous about moving to a place so different from home? Honestly, excited. We'd visited Alaska a few times, and when we did, we explored the whole state, hiked up in Juneau, took a charter plane out of Ketchikan. I loved the mountain ranges and the northern lights and the whale watching and the glaciers and all of the natural wonders, but then once you move here, it's no longer a vacation. It's your life. And you stop exploring and you realize that you don't live in Alaska, you live in Anchorage. Alaska is a monumental paradise. Anchorage is a sleepy town with no culture and barely a pulse, where the local music is bad and the local art is worse. The city lights drown out the northern lights, and you have to drive 3 hours to see a glacier. Okay, as an Alaskan, what are you talking about? What is this? What do you mean Anchorage has no freaking culture? It is full of Alaska native culture, of Alaska culture, period. Unique music, music that they fly in all of the time. There are multiple art centers in downtown. Mad Myrna's is always putting on shows in the downtown, the art museum downtown, and you get mountain ranges in freaking Anchorage on 3 sides. You can see the Sleeping Lady from the port downtown. You also have Ferrandi and the Iditarod every single year. You have ice sculptures in downtown park every winter. What in the actual heck is this that there is no culture and this is a sleepy town? It might look like the buildings are mostly from the 70s and the 80s because who needs to update the buildings with whatever popular style and it's a couple years behind? Whatever. But there is so much culture. And not only am I Alaskan, I was an art student. I was a theater student. Go ahead, laugh at me for being a theater student. I am a writer. I'm trying to remember the one book that was written also by an Alaska native that we had her come talk at our school. I know there are a million of these, but her name was Eowyn, which was actually after the Lord of the Rings book because her parents were big Lord of the Rings fans. It was like called Snow Child. Yeah, The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivy. It is inspired by Alaska folklore, by Alaska Native folklore. Honestly, I'm putting this on my reading list right this second. Honestly. But freaking, you got this guy from Florida and whatever. Maybe Florida culture is not, and which is ironic since I lived in Florida for 13, 14 years? 12 years. 12-ish years. Something like that. Anyway, ironic since I lived in Alaska and Florida. And I could tell you, they both have culture. They have a ton of culture. They have varying culture, especially depending on where you're at. But like to call freaking Anchorage as being a dead city with no culture is insane. Like, and you have no reference of Ferrandi or the Iditarod in this at all. You have no reference of the Sleeping Lady, which actually would have been a pretty cool thing to reference in this if, like, they went for a walk downtown, which is so spread out, by the way, because Alaska is just, like, so much space. Like, it's a small town, but so much. I think Anchorage has, like, 250 to 300,000 people in it. That's the biggest city in Alaska. And just imagine if they had gone down to the pier or the port, you know, where they got the sand. What are they called? It's the sand that's so wet that you'll basically just get sucked in and can't get out when the water is out. I don't remember what it's called, but you can't go walk on it. Mud flats. There we go. They got the mud flats that you can't walk out on. And imagine that they just walked down there and they were just at there is an entire walking path kind of along the pier, and you can just look out at the water and the mud flats and you can see the Sleeping Lady. And imagine, you know, maybe Waldo here talks about the legend of the Sleeping Lady since she is from Alaska, and she could have like pushed back on this guy that him saying that there is no culture in Alaska, though obviously Waldo also hates Alaska, which, you know, fair. I obviously left Alaska because I was sick of the isolation, and there is a heavy feeling of isolation, not only from just like how far away from everything it is and how far you have to drive in order to get anywhere. I mean, it's like an hour to get to Wasilla, and the everywhere but Anchorage is going to be much smaller. Like Fairbanks is more developed than Wasilla is, but you're still pretty much the biggest city that you're going to run into is Alaska, and it's not even like a big city. Like you think a big city is in the lower 48, and it's not even that. But the isolation is real, and especially because of like the environment feels isolating too, with like the insulation of the snow and how much snow there is. And then you've got the clouds all the time where it's overcast probably 70 to 80% of the time, and that overcast, while good for heat, does also feel like being boxed in. And it's the same with like having the mountains around you. Like the mountains are beautiful, and I lived at the foot of mountains, not like directly at the foot of them, but I could see them from my yard. They were like right there. There were other people that you could, from Anchorage, you could actually get houses on mountainside, but that was more on like Diamond, and those were expensive, and I was poor. I have been financially a struggle the entire time that I lived in Alaska, because that happened because of reasons. Uh, But you could see the mountains. You could watch the termination dust coming down the mountains. And just like there is absolutely zero description of Alaska in this book, zero description of anything that is Alaska. Like there's so much taxidermy and even the airport and the malls. You go to the Fifth Avenue Mall and the J.C. Penney's, and they have like a 12-foot grizzly bear just freaking in J.C. Penney's. I know they've got like cases of birds in the Diamond Center Mall, and I know that there are so many taxidermy shops and fur shops in downtown Anchorage because obviously a huge part of Alaska is hunting. They've also got, I'm pretty sure it's at the Diamond Center. There's a moose that is a stuffed moose. It is a taxidermied moose that you can pose with. That's just out there. And that's another thing that this never mentions is moose are everywhere in the city. You have moose crossing everywhere. When I was going to UAA, I would sit like the entire front of the arts building is glass. And there were more than one occasions where you would be coming to school from the parking lot and there were just moose standing in the walkway between, you know, the road and the front door, and you'd actually have to go around to the back door because you don't want to get anywhere close to a moose because they are aggressive. And I've had times when I was sitting in the sitting area that's right next to that big glass front window, and you just had moose leaning up against the glass, just laying against the glass. So, like, it's insanity. It's insanity. Now, I never saw the Northern Lights when I lived in Alaska because I never drove out to see them. And no, you couldn't see them in Anchorage. But to be like, it's a sleepy town and there's nothing here. Bro, you're talking about you're favoring villages. And you can favor villages all you want, but do not pretend that villages have more of a nightlife than Anchorage. It's not. It's not. Also, side note, and this is after all this tangent, so I'm sorry, but the things that Corgi mentioned above are all things that feel like they were described as experiences someone who is only visiting Alaska as a tourist would have and not an Alaskan who actually lives there. If not that, then they are stereotyped based on what you find online about Alaska. But this is such a BS that I actually had a crash out on it if you didn't notice from all of the freaking stuff I just went on. Anyway, they look at Christmas lights, and Waldo is down on herself for what she points out liking, as she thinks that she obviously shows herself as lowbrow. Quote, of course, the girl who shops at Sheen and eats frozen dinners 6 nights a week points out the houses with the Santa workshop blow-ups. I love that he knows better, but I wish I did too. I wish I knew how to be tasteful, to not have to stink of white trashiness trailing me wherever I go. So if she already knows or believes herself to be white trash and that pointing out the blow up things makes her white trash, then why is she not just pretending that she doesn't like those and actually likes the brighter things while talking to herself internally that those aren't the things that she likes? Because she knows how to be inauthentic. Her entire thing is she knows how to be inauthentic. She trips, and when Mr. Corgi catches her, she kisses him, and he is like, oh my gosh. And he backs away, and as Waldo insists that there are feelings between them, Mr. Corky says there are most certainly not feelings between them. She absolutely is wrong about that and what their relationship is supposed to be. He's not here for her because of that reason. Calm down. So something nondescript is messed up with Waldo's car. This just makes it so she can't go home first yet. It never really hints at what the problem was. It just makes a reason for her to sit in Mr. Corgi's car awkwardly after what happened, and asks if he is going to report this. To which, quote, "No, I'm not going to report this," he says, shaking his head. "I'm not telling anyone about this. If anyone found out, I'd be fired. I came on to you. It doesn't matter. I should have seen this coming. I'm more than twice your age, and I'm your teacher. I shouldn't have invited you to dinner. I shouldn't have gone on a walk. I shouldn't have engaged at all. You didn't do anything wrong. Well, I promise you, that's not what anyone else would think. Who cares what other people think? People are mostly stupid anyway, and they don't think for themselves. They just regurgitate headlines and buzzwords and the point of views of people that they follow on Instagram. I would have thought you didn't care about what other people think." Yeah, and all of those things that Mr. Corgi just said he did, those were all bad ideas. How did you not see this coming when you were giving students special treatment that you all obviously already knew was probably not where you wanted to go with this? Waldo then takes a cab home. The cab is smelly of cigarettes, and the cabbie is berating his wife on the phone the whole time. When she gets home, Tony, her mother's boyfriend, is there and quickly leaves. She's jealous that her mother made him dinner, but never makes her dinner, not even fresh like the tacos that she had made for Tony that night. She's like, you can just warm up the tacos that are already here. Once Tony leaves, Mom is waiting for a text that is never going to come, and her and Waldo watch The Bachelor together. Waldo judges herself for her appearance, and she believes that she doesn't look pretty enough for Mr. Corgi or to be somebody that Mr. Corgi would want. Quote, he's got a wife and a kid and a fully baked life. Still, I can't help wondering, is there a level of beauty one can reach where they become undeniably wanted? Maybe by some people, but not everybody is going to be easily manipulated by beauty when that is maybe not the thing that they value the most. And that's not even saying that somebody wouldn't be seen as beautiful by their chosen partner, regardless of how they look, because of the because of the affection involved. Waldo gets to class anxious to see Mr. Corgi, but a substitute is there instead. And so she decides that she needs to stalk him harder because she's like, bruh, he can't even face me after I kissed him. That means that what I am doing is working. Waldo, no. No, 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 no. If you thought her stalker antics were gonna get better, you were wrong. They're only going to get worse. I'd say enjoy the show, but it's very uncomfortable. It's so hold on to your seat. Now they're at the Alaska State Zoo and they're watching an elephant poop in the corner because this just reminds me of any of the edgy books that I've read that things like using visually disgusting things or constantly swearing or constantly being vulgar somehow makes it like hardcore art or harder art or something like that. And so she's like, yeah, we're watching an elephant shit in the corner and that makes this real art, bro. I'm so deep. The world is disgusting shit. Now, Nick Cutter style. It's Nick Cutter style, okay? But also another ding against this friggin' location choice, BT dubs, because there hasn't been an elephant in the Alaska State Zoo since 2007. Initially, there was Annabelle, who came to Alaska State Zoo in 1966, and she passed away in 1977. She had a partner named Maggie, who lived in the zoo with her for 24 years and was relocated to California in 2007 due to the concerns over her welfare because Alaska was not a good fitting environment for an elephant. Who would have thought? Now, you've got bears and lynx and moose and all sorts of those animals in the zoo. So, how are you freaking picking an elephant for Alaska? This is the last thing that feels like an Alaska. I know it's a zoo, but like, bruh. Location matters. Location matters. And doing just these small things can actually make your location feel more legitimate. And the fact that she's like, I'm just an elephant in an Alaska State Zoo made it feel less legitimate. Unless you wanted to make this to be in the freaking 1980s, maybe 1990s, which this is not. But at the very least, try to make a vibe. I just don't know. Waldo is upset that Mr. Corgi hasn't been at school all week and she is crashing out. Franny and her boyfriend comment on the loneliness of the elephant, so maybe it's trying to reference that as Maggie, but I don't know. The winter formal has come, and this is one of the areas that feels like it's kind of a forced reference to like My Dark Vanessa or copying My Dark Vanessa because there was a winter dance or some sort of dance, whatever, when Mr. Strain was alone in the office with Vanessa the first time, or alone with her outside, I think it was maybe, where that's where the first change happened or the first real push. I like he put his hand on her under the desk at some point or made some comment. But there was like this was a changing point in My Dark Vanessa. So and this feels so out of left field and so random. So they're having the winter formal and Mr. Corgi has been gone for 2 weeks now, and Waldo can't get any answers as to why he has been out of school. Waldo judges everybody at the winter formal as being lesser than her, especially her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend, because even though Waldo thinks herself garbage for being trailer trash, she thinks everybody else is worse than trailer trash. So you'd think that she'd be more okay with her trailer trash origins if she thinks everybody else sucks more. Quote, eventually, the air grows thick with sweat and hormones, and the moves starts to get more suggestive, everyone gyrating except Franny and Tristan, who leave room for Jesus between them, which makes them look even more related. She's so mean. Waldo is such a mean person. Honestly, she should just stop being Franny's friend at this point. It's a disservice to Franny, who deserves better from somebody that she calls her best friend. A boy asks Waldo to dance. This guy's name is Nolan. It's not important at the moment, but he'll come up as a tool in the future. He doesn't get any other screen time at the moment. She rejects him and then slips out of the dance to go to Mr. Corgi's office and get off on touching all of his things and sniffing his chair. I'm not joking. Quote, I had hoped that it would smell like him, but instead it just smells like pencil shavings and chalk. An ordinary classroom, not his classroom. I want to feel his classroom. I want to feel him. I touch his desk, his Bic pens, his earth-toned paper clips, his mechanical pencils, his magic rub erasers and bright yellow highlighters, his ruler paper and the paper circles that rain out from them. I touch the arms of his chair, caressing the balding leather that his elbows have rubbed against so many times. I lean down and breathe in his chair, then the back of the chair, and then the seat. Can we get this girl a little bit of help, please? she she needs it. Look, there are ways to smell things in a not creepy way. Tommy 100% smells one of Marcella's neckties after she is indisposed. But they're in a relationship. Now, while Waldo has her face pressed up against Mr. Corgi's chair, he walks in to do some extra work during the winter formal, which is another bizarre thing. Like, why is he showing up during an event at the school to do extra work? He could just come in, like, over the weekend, because it's probably a Friday night, in order to do that work. It's just, and a teacher, somebody who is a teacher by trade can tell me if this is something that you would do, but like everybody that I asked said that this was a weird choice. So let me know what your thoughts are on that matter. Waldo confronts Mr. Corgi about why he's been gone for 2 weeks after she kissed him, and he says that he is not avoiding her. He says that he was on a break because his father had passed away, and he had been helping his family take care of business and had been handling that mentally as well because it was his father. She doesn't even say, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss." She doesn't say, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" She says nothing because she doesn't see Mr. Corgi as anything but a tool, a prop for her to use. And so since he has been gone, he hasn't been available to be a prop. And so now that he is back, regardless of the reason why he was gone, she needs to get to the using. Now, Mr. Corgi made a fatal mistake at this point, where he already knows that this girl was making moves on him, was already crossing boundaries when he told her no, and was now stalking his classroom when he wasn't there. Now, seeing her in there, and with the past that they already have, he should have walked out of the room immediately and not to be left in there alone with her, not wanting to be left alone in there with her because of what she may choose to do in the privacy. Like, and he said it before, like, she made the move on him, but nobody would believe him if he said that she made the move. He would get in trouble regardless. So he should know that he needs to just like back out. You could say, we can talk a bit about this another day, whatever. But he did not step out of the room and instead kept talking to her. She pushes him into a chair and straddles him and tells him to have sex with her while she is grinding on him. And this is where Waldo's actions turn into not only a stalker, but actual sexual assault on the teacher. And if this book was trying to make some situation of like how this teacher was taking advantage of her, it cannot possibly do that because she assaults him while he says no, while he is going through a grieving period. And it doesn't even matter. A 17-year-old, possibly 18 at the point of this, because the book starts and she is 17 and 10 months. So here, like, now in winter, so she's 18 at this point. And so 17, 18 doesn't matter. You are old enough to understand consent. And the situation goes on like this, quote, "He leans his head back, agony tearing through him. He shuts his eyes and shoots his breath out, resisting or trying to, but he grows even harder. Emboldened by his bulge, I trace his ear, cup his face, run my hand through his hair. He's lined up underneath me and throbbing with heat, desperate to be free. I reach down to help. No, no, he says. Please let me. No. He repeats more sternly this time. He breaks away and touches his mouth, stunned. I grab his hand and put his fingers in my mouth and suck on it while I look into his beautiful blue eyes, into his sad, sad soul. Are you sure about that, Mr. Corgi? I ask, licking his fingers while grinding on him slowly. He's so hard it hurts. Yes, yeah, Jesus, Waldo, I'm sure we can't, he says. Look at me, I order, teasing him with my rhythm. Waldo, aren't you gonna look at me, Mr. Corgi? I can't, he says. Please, Waldo, I want you to look at me. Waldo, please get off of me. No, I say, rocking on him, picking up my pace. Just like you can't look at me, I can't get off you, because I see that you're hurting, and all I want to do is make you feel good. A bead of sweat trickles down his forehead. Slow down, Waldo. Call me baby. I can't. Call me baby. Slow down, baby. I can't slow down. I want you to know how much I need you, I say, sliding myself down against the length of him. Then again. I need you. So, how many times did she just deny his saying stop and no? Now, she keeps going, regardless of his protestations, until he comes in his pants. He apologizes very, very quickly, saying, like, he's stunned, goes, I'm sorry, and then quickly leaves, though Waldo teases him more and tries to get him to do more with her. He should have pushed her off. He could have theoretically pushed her off, but he was also in a state of shock. And so I'm not going to put that on Mr. Corgi in the same way that if a man had forced himself on a girl and the girl didn't like fight him off, even though she was saying no, no, no. I'm not going to say that she was asking for it or that she didn't fight hard enough, because sometimes your body goes into shock when you're being assaulted. Waldo is back at the dance with Franny and her boyfriend, looking at pictures of Mr. Corgi while ignoring her friends, and we get this quote, and then I had the audacity to feel proud of myself, proud that for a fleeting moment of guilt that I did nothing about, that I shoved aside with more swipes and clicks and scrolls so that I could get more photos of just him, photos that allowed me to feed my obsession scot-free and guiltless. I don't think the hyper aware narrator of the story is actually helping the character, but feels more like an intrusion of writing to criticize the behavior from a third party, i.e., the author, while it is happening. So that this isn't good, but also it doesn't work when the character is commenting on her own bad actions. It doesn't read sincere, nor do I think that Waldo would have the ability to recognize or acknowledge herself as being obsessed or dangerous in the way that she is. She's dropped off at home and gets a message from Mr. Corgi saying that they need to talk. Quote, we're at Sleepy Dog, a coffee shop a half hour out of town. This is a small nitpick, but I'm already nitpicking because of Alaska. There are no coffee shops a half hour outside of Anchorage. The highway does not work the same way in Alaska as it does the lower 48. 30 minutes outside of Anchorage is just highway. Highway and mountains. There is nothing between the towns usually. The Glen Highway is just empty, but for trees and scenery. Also, the coffee shops would be friggin' Kaladi Bros is like, at least that was the local spots. Kind of like Caribou is the Northwest, and Black and Brew is the Lakeland, and there's a dog one in Tampa, but Kaladi Bros is the local franchise that everybody likes. They could have met at Moose's Tooth, which is a pizza place that also is very local, very loved. Like, there are no reference to places that actually exist in this that make it Alaska, and definitely you can make up your own places, but like at least give it the vibe. But we're like making truck stops and stuff where there just aren't any, because that's not how Alaska highways work. Whereas like down here, you can get on like the I-4 or I-95 and you're going to pass a million other towns between like where you're going, and every freaking 20-30 minutes you're passing somewhere else. That does not happen on Alaska highways. So Mr. Corgi is dressed in a ball cap, hat down, nondiscreet outfit to try to hide who he is, and he's sitting at a booth and telling Waldo that what happened in that classroom can never happen again. And she's thinking, quote, I want to reach over and grab his cock and feel it harden in my hand and say, no, it's not you. You want me. Oh, no, it's not. You want me. And you feel guilty about it and awful and disappointed in yourself. But it doesn't matter what you feel about what you want. All that matters is that you want it. What you want is the truth of who you are. And you want me. But instead, something else comes out, timid and almost a squeak. Now, I know the dude is an adult and he's making mistakes of his own. Like, he needs to cut her off. He needed to never text her or invite her to dinner. He is feeding her obsession mindset by engaging with her in anything. However, let's not put off that she is being pushy and pushing boundaries, and a 17-year-old is old enough to understand that no means no. And so, like, she can be as disastrous as she wants. She is a character, whatever. This is a 17, 18-year-old written by an adult woman. But we can recognize this character is sexually assaulting her teacher and is using rapist language in the same way that if a man said, but she was wet, so she obviously wanted it, she orgasmed, so she obviously was enjoying it. That wouldn't fly when it comes to rape. So it shouldn't be accepted from the perspective of this girl. And this is in discussion, okay? Again, the character can be as imperfect as she wants to be in her own story because who knows what the themes are supposed to be at this point if we're reading it that way. Like, I've already finished the book. She's supposed to be a hero of the story. It's never acknowledged that she assaulted this man, but in the conversations, in the reviews and all of that with other people, so many people overlook the fact that she sexually assaulted and uses rape language to justify it because she is 17 and he's an adult. So he is the rapist, even though she raped him. Like, that's what bothers me about all of this is for some reason people cannot acknowledge that she is the aggressor in this and he is an idiot. Just because he made his own mistakes does not excuse her criminal activity. And that's really what I want to look at here is the double standard, the ignorance, the whatever you want to call this of what this girl did to this guy, and she went after him in a moment of weakness. Like, if you look at other situations where in general you're supposed to say, oh, this guy in a normal position like this, like if you look My Dark Vanessa, he saw somebody who is lonely and alienated and preyed on their vulnerabilities. She saw him saying he felt like a failure in his life, which also I'm not entirely sure. We never get to experience or express or go deeper with him. um Obviously he feels like a failure and alone because his wife chooses her family over him on the holidays, so he may not feel loved. His needs at home may not be loved, or he may not be receiving the sort of affection he needs. And yet, it also has him like being close enough to his wife that he tells his wife about her and she comes over for dinner with the wife. So, I'm not really sure what the wife's role is supposed to be in this. We never get a full look at Mr. Corgi as a person. He is just a prop of the story. However, that doesn't excuse anything that Waldo does. And the big issue for Waldo here is that she is an obsessive stalker that sexually abuses men because she's going to use Nolan in the future, and we see her use and discard people. Oh, and this is where I was coming from too with the vulnerability thing. We see her prey on him when he feels weak and alone. He makes an outward expression of feeling weak and vulnerable, and that's what draws her to him. And that's what she starts preying on is that he feels like a weak, lonely loser who doesn't have family, who doesn't have his spouse loving him. And so that happens. And he doesn't prey on her and her vulnerability. He never brings up her family situation. He is never the one pursuing her. She is the one that is pursuing him. And then she pursues him against his will when he says no after she kisses him. And she pursues him when he is lonely on the holidays and he is drunk and not in his right mind. Doesn't excuse him making bad decisions, but also him making bad decisions doesn't excuse her sexual assault of him. And then she pushes him when he is grieving, again, a weakened mental state, a weakened emotional state, and in a state of shock because it's easier to acknowledge, because it's hard to acknowledge that not only was he assaulted by a woman, but assaulted by a student. And who would believe that? Nobody would believe that. And as far as the rest of this goes, she has been in the powerful position because from the moment that she kissed him and he said, "We can't tell anybody about this. Nobody will believe me that you started it." She knew that she had control over him because whatever she does, she can blame on him and he'll get in trouble. And he has to cope with that. Not only that, but she is manipulating him and by saying his emotions and thoughts don't matter, only his carnal desires or his bodily reactions. Again, those are the words of a rapist saying she wanted it because she was wet. And then I saw this comment on the Goodreads page, quote, This will do more for someone who has done absolutely zero reflecting regarding contemporary visions of consent and agency, who knew someone underage may actively pursue their own mistreatment out of sheer libido, boredom, immaturity, rather than always being groomed by a domineering aggressor. Many a pathetic leech exists to blame a steadfast child's steadfastness for said child's rape. Poetry, this is not, but I hope that it can shock people into complex thoughts. Or there are many references that this is only statutory rape because Corgi's victimhood of being pursued aggressively by this girl and locked into a corner basically by his mistakes that he made, it damned both ways is overlooked, and her saying that he wanted it, whether he acknowledged it or not, are overlooked because she is or was at some point 17. And I know this is going to be controversial. He shouldn't have ever been alone with her. He'd made his own mistakes, and she is still a stupid 17 or 18-year-old, but she knows well enough that no means no, and the pursuit and the blackmail of Mr. Corgi is going through. Turn Corgi into the 17-year-old, and no one would bat an eye that Waldo was the problem. Corgi will suffer criminal penalties for engaging with a minor, but that doesn't absolve her of her behavior just because he is an adult. How would this story have read if Waldo was just a couple months older at 18 when the book started? Quote, "Are you sure?" The barista shouts, "Marina," again, and this time with heat. "Maybe they haven't given up on life yet." "Yes, I'm sure," Mr. Corgi says. But I think back to the other night at the winter formal, how his body was saying a completely different thing from the way what his mouth is saying, and I turn my attention to it. His legs are crossed and his arms are folded over his belly like he is trying hard to close himself off, to shut me out. But the gesture looks forced, against his will even. Underneath the pose, I feel his pull, magnetic and undeniable. The truth. Ignore her age. This is the language of a predator. Your mouth says no, but your body says yes. Quote, "No," I say finally. "I think you wish you wanted it to never happen again, but I don't think that's what you really want. Can you admit that to me at least?" I can't tell whether I'm supposed to feel insulted or validated. Is this a rejection or an admission of feeling, or maybe it's a challenge? Now, after saying this, Mr. Corky should have stood up right then and said no, never again, and walked out. Do not continue to engage with this, because as far as I'm concerned, if you watch Waldo, any engagement is encouragement to the behavior, because that's how stalkers work. Unfortunately, Corgi makes this mistake while Waldo keeps probing him. Quote, "I do have feelings for you, and they keep me up at night, but there is nothing I can do about them." You never needed to say that, but this is just obviously more character is tool for the storyline as opposed to a real person. Waldo argues that she shouldn't have to worry about age appropriate things because, quote, "What in my life is age appropriate? I bought my car, my laptop, my clothes, my gas. I pay the electric bill. I do the laundry and the dishes and the vacuuming. I've been managing my mom's emotions since I was 5. I don't spend my days worrying about what house party I'm going to go get wasted at. I worry about if the water's going to come out of the faucet the next time I turn it on. If my mom's going to be bedridden from the breakups, then I'm going to have to drop everything in my life to be there for her so that she doesn't spiral so bad that she loses another job. None of that's age appropriate." You're right. Those are things 17-year-olds shouldn't have to worry about. But you're still 17, and I'm still a lot older than you. I have life experiences, a context for life that can only come with age. I've made mistakes that you haven't. I have regrets that you don't. I assure you, your feelings for me will fade. 3 months from now, you'll be going to prom with your new boyfriend, and you'll be laughing to yourself about the crush that you had on a crusty old teacher. Like, he is putting her down as nicely as possible and reasoning with her more nicely than she really deserves for what the way she has treated him and talked to him. And if this was the route he was going to go, he really shouldn't have even said that he had feelings for her because, again, it's just going to encourage her because she's like, oh, he's got feelings. I just have to keep that pursuit up. And it gives her validation. And Corgi should also try to transfer out of that school, if whether he says something or not about what's happened with his students. But he needs to get out of that situation so he is not so close to her. After that meeting with Corgi, Waldo goes to the mall, obsessively thinking about Corgi and what he'll say next. She sees an LA Dodgers hat, and in my opinion, this also just confirms that the book is set in LA, but it's called Alaska. because not that you can't have LA hats or hats for other state whatevers in Alaska, but like why are you not picking aces or sea wolves or anything else that would like suggest it being Alaska? Instead you pick an LA hat. So it's LA. Anyway, she goes on a shopping spree, uses some of the stuff at home, gets a text from Corgi saying that he wants to come over and he's drunk. And this is where he is crossing a boundary again, where he shouldn't. And it's also very likely a trauma response to being sexually assaulted. Now, I'm not dismissing his inappropriate actions in this case as he now pursues the relationship or reciprocates the relationship that Waldo wanted. However, you also have to look at the fact of sexual assault survivors and that many do get into relationships with their abuser, why many stick with their abuser, and what it may be going on in this man's mind, which is that he is backed into a corner, there is no way to get away from her, and there is also a difficulty to mentally process that he was assaulted. And it's sort of a way of taking back power in the assault if you trick yourself that it was consensual because now you are approaching it. You know, and there are studies and papers on this sort of thing, but I think that is what is actually happening here with Corgi as opposed to anything else. Now, he shows up at Waldo's place drunk off of his ass, which is going to be her taking advantage of him because he is drunk. Great decisions are being made here. She likes that he is drunk. He drinks even more, and they have sex where he fucks her brains out. Waldo goes to work, accepts compliments that she is given, does homework, and isn't bitter like usual, and then goes back to look at Christmas lights with her friends, and also isn't annoyed as she normally is because her mood is motivated because she has had great sex with Mr. Corgi. Corgi texts her and says that he wants to see her again and show her art. She's like, cool, let's hang out. Corgi and Waldo then go to Alaska Resort, have sex in the room, and talk about their childhoods, listen to music, listen to comedians, and watch movies. Quote, I tell him about my favorite Christmases growing up, the ones at the trailer park, how it sounds sad just because of the words trailer park, but how it was actually pretty great. How every family member would make a different dish and how we'd all bring them out to a long fold out plastic table and make a big buffet of it. Roasts and ham and chicken, candied yams and green bean casserole and stuffing and pumpkin pie and store brand canned croissant rolls that we'd stuffed with marshmallows and sprinkles with cinnamon, sugar, and we'd sit in lawn chairs around the fire, wearing the warmest coats, our breath white in the cold air, and we'd sing Christmas carols and listen to one of the adults read The Grinch or The Gift of Magi or The Night Before Christmas. Don't see anybody in the fancy zip codes with communities like this, Mom would say, and I'd nod in agreement. Bro, no one is doing this in Anchorage. You'd be at a community center or someone's house or a church or something, but sitting in the lawn chairs in snow with your hot food turning to friggin' ice on a table? Are you joking? And that's if it's not snowing straight into your food. They drive back, and Corgi is singing at the top of its lungs, and they tell each other that they make each other feel young. So Waldo is at Denny's for Christmas with her mom, gets a Merry Christmas beautiful message from Corgi, and mom's in a mood because Tony is not talking to her again. They're in on and off land again. New Year's Eve has come, and Corgi is spending it with Waldo because his wife is with her sister. Why even have a wife at this point? It kind of reminds me how of in Tampa, the teacher had a husband who was never there, or he was just getting drugged, and so his role in the story really didn't matter, and she may as well have been single. It wouldn't have made a difference to this story if Corgi was single, because this character, this wife, has nothing to do with anything, except it does smart a little more at the end because he gives up literally his entire family that he had in order to pursue Corgi, or in order to go with Corgi and have a relationship with her after she's graduated, and he just like gets ditched by her as she goes on a road trip and ditches everything in her life and stops talking to everybody. And so it's just like ouch for him. He lost literally everything. At least Mr. Strand was single. Well, that's also because Mr. Strand was a continual predator who set up a situation where he was theoretically going for different girls all the time, but this is like a one-time thing with this teacher. Anyways, Wanda is obsessing about when the holidays are over and she won't have the same access to Corgi because his wife will be back, and so he won't have as much free time. Corgi buys groceries for Waldo so that she's able to eat better food than what she has been eating. She doesn't want it and drinks flat root beer instead because she is so used to her lifestyle that proper food just doesn't sit well with her. Corgi's wife calls while he is with Waldo, and Waldo listens as he's berated by her, and then she services his dick while he is on the call. Quote, I lean forward and start stroking his cock, licking it, sucking his wrinkly balls, giving him the masculinity she's taken away, relieving him of the exhaustion of marriage, of family, of a disappointing career and a thinning hairline. I know my job, my role, to make him feel good, to be his escape, to take him out of the pressure of his life, which includes not putting any pressure on him to be the bigger part of mine. I'm looking back at how this started, how she felt without value or purpose, but gained purpose in making this guy feel like more of a man and dominating him. It's a power thing for sure, where she has no power over others, but why has degrading herself for this guy been the thing that makes her feel like life has more meaning now? Was it just because of the prize? Because she thinks he's authentic so that she gets something out of faking something? Because we really don't have an idea of like her motivation or why this feels so differently from the relationship she had with Randy or any of the other guys that she had a relationship with. But suddenly this relationship is the one that makes her feel so different. There's not enough background on this girl or why she is the way that she is. There's not enough development on her motivations or why she does what she does to make this make sense. Waldo's birthday is now here, and she is depressed by the gifts that her mom got her because they're late and not what she likes and cheap. Also, her mom has to go to work. So the only thing that she does like that her mom got her was a bag of Sour Patch Kids. She gets a message from Corgi saying that his responsibilities fell through and he can now hang out with her on her birthday, and so she's excited. Waldo and Corgi go for a picnic at Beluga Point, and she says that it is the best birthday she has ever had because he is a part of it. Waldo is now skating with Franny and is wondering who Waldo is texting, and she's whirlwind obsessed with every time he messages and empty when he is not talking to her. She's gotten high from it at this point and she can't control. Quote, the timbre of our exchanges is intense, frantic, and clawing, all consuming rapid fire missiles shot back and forth. The content is dynamic, running the gamut from flirty emojis to horny and hurried sexting to bursting confessions. I get so swept up in the messages that I can't see or hear anything else. The rest of my life blotted away while I get lost in the 6-inch phone screen that represents him until his until he signs off with a quick goodbye, and everything is calm and empty again. So I reread them 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. On work breaks, over dinner, before bed, I pore over every gray bubble, find meaning that may or may not be there, place extra emphasis on the soft words, the tender ones, the apathetic ones, the ones where he gives just a little bit more sometimes, and I touch the text like a widow who grazes her fingers through her deceased husband's sweaters, reverently, longingly, clinging to any trace of him. She talks about how much she has to drop everything just to squeeze as much time as she can in with him. She is still obsessive to a dangerous degree, and she is upset every second that she is not talking to him and feels responsible for talking to him every second of every day. Corgi then brings her lunch and says that his fantasy is the world stops and they get to keep all of the time for themselves. She is feeling super needy, and he is not there for her emotionally because he's got a family that he has to keep up with. He's got a job he's got to keep up with, and they got this facade that something is not going on because he'll get in trouble for it. To make up for the lack of emotional intimacy that she's looking for, she demands that he fucks her, and he does. An issue that I take with this as being a character arc's problem, etc., is that she recognizes that she sought out sex for intimacy all the way from the beginning of the book. She mentions it in the first chapter, even, and then she does it to simulate having a relationship with Corgi via the masturbation until she actually has one. But also, she used it to get physical intimacy with Corgi. Maybe it's because I don't see them doing anything else but having sex all of the time, and that's also the point, is that she doesn't exactly know how to have an intimate relationship with a person and just has sex for that purpose. But also, we're exactly where we were. We're exactly where we started, and I don't know why this guy is different from the boys in the beginning of the book, other than she idolizes a middle-aged man for some reason. I have no idea how this is less vapid than any of her other relationships, or why she can still reflect that he is emotionally unavailable, so I take the sex and pretend that he is emotionally available. Like, it's all the same thing. Now we mad dash to get ready for a date with Mr. Corgi, only for him to text after she is ready, saying that he's doing damage control with his wife and won't be able to make it. Corgi is not a real person. There's no reason behind any of the way that he acts but to operate as a puppet for the sake of the plot. Now they're at dinner and he gets a call from his wife and has to excuse himself. When he gets back, Waldo is mad and says, quote, "Panic floods his face for a moment, so fleeting it's almost imperceptible. Almost. But I saw it. That look of terror, of, oh no, we're out of the honeymoon phase where I can do no wrong. She's starting to see through me. She's starting to break through the surface like all women do, all of them the same, and their endless pools of wants, their infatuations, all too quickly blurring into hatred. It was a micro moment of truth, of raw animal emotions that he was able to edit so quickly, to correct so seamlessly that it scares me. If he's able to manipulate his own emotions so well, what might he be able to do with mine?" And this feels like it is trying too hard to redirect. She is suspicious. She's gotten bored with him. I know that this is trying to make him out to be manipulative, but more than anything, so far he's been opportunistic as far as I can see. She presented the situation multiple times to him, and he eventually just gave in and took it. She's been she's been the one that has been pursuing him. She has been having internal monologues of how she wants to manipulate him, and she has already projected long term onto her friends and peers about how they are dishonest. So this is hard for me to take seriously. But for what's left over therapist speak that doesn't belong here, but her being suspicious of everyone like she does. And still, there is no sense here of why she is suddenly changing when she was giggling before about being his mistress and how that was good enough for her. Not that she can't change, but we're not seeing a reason for it to now strike a chord and be different for her. She demands more attention from him, less be given to his wife. He says that he has to give attention to his wife or else this whole thing will fall apart. They can stop seeing each other if it bothers her. Waldo says she doesn't want to stop seeing each other, so let's keep doing this, and they talk about their lives and finish their dinner together. Waldo is now losing her mind because Mr. Corgi is going out of town for spring break and to spend that with his wife. She tries to suck his dick out of desperation to show how much she needs him, but he stops her. As Waldo crashes out further at Mr. Corgi's absence, she gets ready to send him both an angry email and a begging, needy one, but calls her mom instead. Her mom is too busy with her boyfriend at the movies that Waldo says nothing to her and lies about her emotional state. Waldo is having a really bad day at work, and she complains about how she bought 5 carts worth of stuff when she is supposed to be poor. Quote, "I've purchased 5 online carts in the days since Corgi left. So many items of clothing that will inevitably wind up in landfills somewhere, expanding my carbon footprint and contributing to global warming when in 3 months I'll decide I don't want them anymore, which seems like a thing that I should have known to begin with, considering they were never really the thing that I wanted in the first place. They were just smaller, more attainable things to want, placeholders for the bigger, insatiable, incorrigible want underneath." I have such an issue with the way that her being poor is portrayed in this, and I can't take it as serious. So she could be poor because she spends her money inappropriately on impulse all the time. Number one, she is 17, so she would be working minor hours. She would not be working full time. She is also going to school, so again, she would not be working full time hours. Yet she is supposed to be able to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these purchases because she's also getting free shipping, which I don't know if Alaska gets free shipping. You couldn't get free shipping when I lived there, but you have to spend a lot of money in order to achieve free shipping, theoretically, if you're going to Alaska, because shipping to Alaska is so much more expensive than anywhere else. On top of that, she's supposedly paying all of the bills at the house because her mom isn't paying any of the bills, and yet she always has food in the fridge. She's never actually at threat of her lights turning out, so she's spending all of this money, and we're told that she is poor and has, this really tight budget that she is operating under against her impulses, and yet we never see consequences to the actions of her overbuying. It is just a costume, is what it feels like. It's just like a detail that is thrown in there to kind of put her in a worse situation. And yet we never see the consequences of her overspending as she talks about this stuff. You would think, oh, she's bought 5 carts worth of stuff. Well, now in one of the following scenes, her lights are going to go out and her house is going to go cold because the power was pulled and it is December. Like, that would have been something to actually show just how bad her consequences are, just how bad her impulses are, that she, despite knowing this, couldn't stop those impulses, that desire to fill the void, so bad that she purchased all these things and then immediately tried to cancel the orders. And they said, oh, you can't cancel, sorry. And now she can't pay her bills. And now she is cold. And her mother is cold. And her mother is so out of it that she doesn't even know what's going on. And she's just like, why isn't this stuff paid for? Why is this happening? You know, it could have deepened the character, and instead we have this very shallow thing where it's just her saying, I'm poor, I'm trailer trash, and yet she always has what she wants anytime she wants it. So it feels fake. Not only that, but in her comments like this, she's more concerned about consumerism than survival, than being able to pay her bills. So it's not really one of her worries if she is concerned more about landfills than being able to afford food and shelter. The bottom line is this character doesn't work with all the things that she's set up with having, and the living situation is not believable for me. Getting back to the story, she's just having a miserable time at work being yelled at by a customer. So things are starting to escalate with Waldo shortly after that. Quote, I'm parked outside of his house, trying my best to convince myself that what I'm about to do is not deranged, that actually it's a good thing, that it will comfort me, make me feel good, and that he would want that for me to feel good. So, by association, he would want me to do this. I know I'm only rationalizing, and on a good day, I know that there is nothing more insane than a woman's rationalization to herself about a man, but today is not a good day. I cut across the lawn and slip around the side of the house to try the back door, half expecting an alarm, my body rushing with the thought. The cops would come, and maybe there'd be a female, and she'd ask, why are you breaking and entering, as she snaps the cuffs on me, and I'd say, to be close to him. I just want to be close to him, and she'd look at me with understanding. Maybe that's all this rabid part of me wants, to be understood, to know that it's not crazy or troubled or wrong, that this is just what it feels like to want an unavailable man. The more that this includes therapy talk, the less it helps. So, what Waldo is doing is she's breaking into Mr. Corgi's house while he is on vacation, while he's on spring break with his wife and child. And what Waldo does is she goes through his things, masturbates on his bed with a container of cologne, and then puts the bottle back while it's still covered in her fluids. She eats some of his food and peruses his private computer files, coveting Gwen as his wife before leaving. And if you think that this is going to come up later because, you know, she left traces of herself, she's kind of left a mess, she's kind of left food emptied in places. If you'd think that, you know, Mr. Corgi might be like, somebody broke into my house while I was gone, you're wrong. That's never going to happen because there are no actual consequences in this story. It's kind of a power fantasy in a way. So, like, Waldo is out of control. Absolutely. She is a stalker. She sexually assaulted this man. She has broken into his house and masturbated with his belongings. She covets the position of his wife, even though he is unavailable. And yet, oh, and aside from that, she is also constantly shopping to fulfill this need or this commentary that the story may want to be doing about consumerism and filling needs with fake things because you've got a deeper need that you can't figure out how to fulfill any other way. I mean, that's also with the sex addiction that she's showing. But she does all of these things and there are zero consequences. Not once is she worried about a possible pregnancy scare. Not once is she worried about being unable to pay her bills or being unable to eat or like falling asleep in class because she's so low energy because she didn't have food to eat because she purchased all of this stuff from Shein and Sephora. But it, you know, and talking about, well, I might not, you know, feel high energy, but at least I look good because I'm skinny and I got my makeup on. So like there are so many things that could have been done with the elements of this story if they were taken seriously, but instead they just feel like window dressing that is the shallowest to make the shallowest commentary on what they're referring to. When Mr. Corgi comes back from vacation, he wants to meet with Waldo, and it's to talk about how guilty he feels and that he'd rather not be having this affair with her. Quote, "You're not a disappointment to me. I should be! Waldo, my hair is thinning, my gut's growing, and I'm sad most of the time. My in-laws pay most of my family's bills. I'm a fucking high school teacher. Your high school teacher. I should have walked away. I shouldn't have caved. I'm supposed to be stronger than that, bigger than that. I'm supposed to be the adult here." "Hey, hey," I say. "I'm glad that you caved. I want this. I want you. But you shouldn't," he wails. "This is unfair. What I'm doing to you, it's not right." "How can it not be right? Being around you is the only thing that feels right. The only thing that's ever felt right to me. Things that are right shouldn't hurt you. You're hurting so much, and I see that. I see the pain that this is causing you, that I'm causing you. And I need to stop it." He wipes his nose with his sleeve again, and his crying steadies as I stroke his back. I pull him close and rest my head on him, tracing the back of his hand like he's my child who woke up from a scary nightmare, and I'm his parent gently soothing him back to sleep. "Waldo, what we're doing is wrong. What I'm doing. I feel guilty about it every day. I have a family, a beautiful family, who I can't be present for even a second because all I can think about is you. All I want is you. You have me." He jerks away. His face twists with self-loathing. "But you don't have me because how can you? That weighs on me. The things that I can't give you, that I want so badly. I feel terrible. I'm taking something from you that you can never get back. Your first experience of love, a thing that's supposed to be special and delicate and wonderful. But it is all those things with you, I promise." "Waldo, please stop. You're young and beautiful. You have your whole life ahead of you. Eventually, you're gonna resent me, and you're gonna say I robbed the cradle, and you're gonna regret me. I'm scared of that. I'm fucking terrified of that. I don't want to be one of your regrets when you're the best thing that's happened to me in years. I'm not gonna regret you, but you should regret me. I deserve for you to regret me. Do you understand? I do not deserve you. Do you hear me? You're pretty and smart and capable and young. Your life's not made up for you like mine is for me. You could have anyone. You could do anything. You have your potential. Don't waste your potential on me." Mr. Corgi pulls me in and kisses the top of my head over and over again, soothing my hair down between each kiss. I'm just I'm so confused, Waldo. I'm so fucking confused. No one tells you that you're gonna be 40 and still so fucking lost. I need to make this whole situation better. I want to do right by you, and the best way of doing this is to end things now, before they get worse. This is what we need to do. I'm trying to do right by you. So he's made a lot of bad decisions. Like, I mean, getting in this situation, period, has been a bad decision. But there's very little that he could do that would be a better choice in this other than, turning himself in for the situation he's been in and getting out of that school. But this is breaking it to her nicely. This is having concerns for her over himself. I mean, he still is sitting here being like, my feelings, I have feelings for you. But also, he's guilty how he's treating his family. He's guilty how he's treating her. And he's trying to free her and hopefully get out of this situation so she can go and be in a more healthy situation, because he even acknowledges this is not a healthy situation. So this doesn't read as a predator who took advantage of a nutty teenager to me. This is a dude having a midlife crisis as he feels like a failure, can't take care of his family. Obviously, he brings that up that his mother-in-law is paying all of his bills, so he feels like a failure. He feels insufficient. He gave up his dreams. He's 40 and nowhere that he thought he'd be because he gave up writing. His books that he's been working on still sits in a drawer. He likely married to someone that he doesn't recognize anymore because she doesn't act like she did before they were married. And then this teenage girl just throws herself at him because we've seen from them being on the phone when on a date that Gwen yells at him on the phone and berates him on the phone. So all of that is just it's unrecognizable to him, and the way that his wife treats him probably makes him feel even more like a failure because of the things she says to him. And then you have this teenage girl who threw herself at him and believes him to be the greatest thing in the world, and he can pay, and he may not be able to pay the bills of his house, but he can pay for her dinner, to take her on vacations like to Alaska and to Beluga Point and to dinner and all of this, so then he feels more capable. Did he do something wrong? Yes, he did. His being a dumbass doesn't absolve him of his wrongdoing, but if this book was trying to write him as a predator and a manipulator, it's not coming through that way at all. And why was Waldo so sexually aggressive and it is considered like it can just be let go? It's never acknowledged what she did to him and her predating on him in any way. And this continues when I look at the book reviews for this book, the responses, where everything is blaming him. And it even people use the excuse that, well, his body responded and your body is more truthful than your mind. But would you say that to a female rape victim who got wet and orgasmed while she was being raped? That, oh, she actually wanted it because she had a physiological response that you can't control? Because I see this being used as an excuse for why it was okay to sexually assault Mr. Corgi and to absolve Waldo of her wrongdoing so much that it's disturbing. Moving on. Waldo is, of course, being how she is, told Franny about Mr. Corgi, and now Franny is pissed off, wants to report him. She tells Waldo that Waldo was groomed. Waldo says that she is in love with this guy, and Franny agrees not to report Mr. Corgi since Waldo doesn't want to report him. I don't know why this even happened, other than it feels like another plot point that has to be hit because Waldo doesn't care about Franny. I guess it gives her a chance to like brag to Franny that she was getting on with a teacher. And to also get more sympathy because I just feel like Waldo lives off of drama. She loves drama and tension, and that becomes more clear by the time we get to the end of the book. You'll see what I mean. So I think she did that more for her own desire of attention and worry over her. And I do see it as kind of manipulative. Not that, victims can't tell people that when something happens to them, but I don't believe in the sincerity of Waldo. So moving on, Waldo is now watching TV, moping about being heartbroken, and also talking about how she feels more now than she has in years because of the heartbreak that she is feeling. In class again, after moping for days, she is upset that Mr. Corgi isn't giving her any extra attention that she can take on to be a delusional message that means more than it does. She's like, he's not even looking at me so that I can interpret it as a longing stare that he still wants me, even though he said no. And yes, that is exactly what she says. She wants information, she wants interaction from him that she can reinterpret into furthering her delusion of the fantasy, and she recognizes that it is a delusional fantasy. Moping around at school more, Nolan, the guy from the school dance who asked her to dance and she said no, he says he's a good listener and talks to Waldo about how good of a guy he is in an attempt to get her to talk to him back. Then he asks her on a date. I don't know why these guys are lining up to date Waldo when she's not only rude, but she is obviously unavailable, and we get no reason as to why anybody would be interested in her to this extent. I mean, maybe she is exceptionally hot, so she would have dudes lined up, but if she's like that level of hot, where is her wider group of friends that would at least want to be around her because of how she looks? We get nothing. On the date with Franny, Nolan, and Tristan, because we're double dating now, Waldo can't stop being gross. Quote, would anyone be offended if I say a pre-meal prayer for the group? He asks. Franny looks like she might come. Comments like that aren't even necessary. It's just Waldo being judgy, an asshole, and going to be as vulgar as possible with everything. Like, just shut up. That's supposed to be your friend. And you have a problem with Franny that is just probably being there, being normal, and you are sex obsessed, so you interpret everything about everyone. Franny deserves better, honestly. Just that's the bottom line here is everything that comes out of Waldo's brain is just caustic and mean, and she doesn't care about anybody but herself. And she just looks for attention. Mr. Corgi is seen at the restaurant that these four are double dating on, and Waldo looks at him, locks eyes with him, and then goes to the bathroom to masturbate with chili cheese fingers that burn her vagina. And yeah, the book decided it needed to say that as well. So again, how can we not see this as some sort of sex addiction? Because also, she's intimating. This goes back to what she was doing at the beginning of the book, where if she is not having active sex with him, she is masturbating to him to further the delusion and this fake feeling of intimacy with him for a relationship that she does not have with him. Now, Waldo is defining womanhood as being an emotional, angry stalker. Yes, that is what she sees womanhood as being, quote. This is crazy. This is batshit crazy, deranged, lady on the verge of a mental breakdown behavior. I have become the worst stereotype of a scorned woman. If I can even be called one, what marks the rite of passage from a girl to woman? A certain age, a broken heart, a fed upness, a real bra using pads to catch post period spotting instead of stuffing your underwear with wads of toilet paper? I don't know exactly what it takes to be considered a woman, but I know that right now, as I sit here in my parked car outside of his house, baseball cap hooding my face, eating a jumbo bag of honey mustard kettle chips, I feel like one. Or at least angry enough to be one. I didn't even know it was his fucking birthday when I decided to drive over here, and I didn't even really decide to drive over here. The thought no sooner entered my mind than my hands were on the steering wheel. Zero lag time between the thought and action. I drove over in the trans, the traffic lights blurry as I manically considered what I believed to be genuine possibilities based solely on the one look that we shared at the diner. I can text him that I'm in I can text him that I'm out front of his house, and he'll run into my arms. He'll pour himself into me, oozing confessions between sloppy kisses, how much he's missed me, how much he needs me, how much he can't live without me. I pluck a potato chip from the bag and pop it into my mouth. I could tell Gwen, or the whole party even. I could run in and spill all of the details of our affair, ruin a man's life in a single speech. The thought of it makes my adrenaline spike. Is this what power feels like? Barbed and vicious and belligerent? But I won't do that. I'd never do that. Because I don't want to ruin this man's life. I want to be in it. It's a truth so opposite of power. So powerless. This is trying so freaking hard. Number one, she's a genuinely scary person for this. Like, this is this is a lethal attraction at this point, but also she is so scary for this. She recognizes that she holds all of the power to ruin his life, and then is pretending that while she is the most powerful, she is also the most powerless. It's like Dalen the Conqueror pretending that while he has all of the power in the world to do whatever he wants, to manifest whatever he wants, he's got these special abilities, he is somehow the most powerless because he feels guilt or something of that sort. Like, she is stalking this man. He's not talking to her, he's not initiating anything with her, and she is going out of her way and then thinking, I want to punish him. I could destroy this man's life. But she's also calling herself a victim. And when she holds all of the cards, it is sick, it's scary, and it honestly surprises me just how little discussion there is on what a bad person Waldo is, because she was 17 at some point when she initiated this. But she's an 18-year-old now. Not that there is much of a difference in stalking and that you don't know that stalking is bad. She is out of control. And again, I'm not saying that a main character or a central character or a protagonist has to be morally sound, has to be a good person in any way, but the issue for me when it comes to this is looking at the discussions surrounding this book that all excuse what Waldo is doing because she was a minor at some point during this book. They cannot possibly look at her actions and grade her actions because she was 17 and he was 40. But either way, this is insanity. Now, she is so depressed, and she was so depressed before she just decided to fall for Corgi. I don't know what her grades were at the start of this book. Not great, because she obviously didn't care about school and only started caring about creative writing because she was trying to use it to manipulate her attention from Corgi. She was trying to impress Corgi, so she started applying to that class. So again, if we're going to talk about manipulation, there it is. But now that he is not giving her special attention, now that he is not willing to have sex with her, she has stopped turning in work for school and she doesn't care. When Corgi tries to talk to her as a teacher that, he wants to see her applying herself because he knows that she can, she decides to threaten him. Quote, Waldo, he says, his tone patronizing, you haven't been turning in your assignments. I've been busy, I say, curtain clipped. I don't care how busy you are. Your education should come first. He runs his hands along his pants, trying to temper his frustration. I like that I'm getting to him, that I'm still able to affect him. Don't let what happened between us distract you. I still want you to be able to take something from my class, he says. A sophomore couple crosses the front of my car. Hands all over each other, Mr. Corgi cracks his neck and waits for them to pass. It's important that you keep writing. Keep flexing the muscle. Keep doing what you love. I try not to laugh. I don't love writing. I loved your attention. I couldn't give two shits about writing. I was using it to get close to you. I understand that you're upset. I'm not saying that because I'm upset. I'm saying that because I mean it. No, he says, shaking his head. I saw that you loved it. You saw what you wanted to see, just like I did, I say. Is there anything else? Yes, there is, he says. If you don't start turning in your assignments, I will fail you. I hold a look at him. There's something I taste on my tongue, something I enjoy, something bold and cunning and confident. I smile. No, you won't, I say. And then I drive off. She visits Nolan's house for dinner and judges the heck out of him and his family for being too normal and fetishizes her dysfunctional family as a coping mechanism, which she identifies this as what she is doing at the time. Quote, his parents give me a brief house tour. They're fully equipped with polite small talk and an invisible but palpable air of stability. It's in their settled eyes, their understanding head nods, their courteous, boundaried phrasing. This explains Nolan. People who come from functional families just don't have the same charge as the rest of us. Functioning families make for boring, flavorless people who just go through the motions of life, never knowing what it really means to live it. Or maybe that's a false narrative that I cling to in order to feel better about my dysfunction, my lot in life, myself. Maybe coming from a functional family doesn't resign someone to a bland, muted, watered down existence. Maybe it's better, a lot better. Maybe that person learns how to navigate their emotions more effectively and not be led by them or ruled by them or so disrupted by them all the goddamn time, upended by them. Maybe that person learns how to communicate better and how to curb impulsivity and fit into systems and be more okay and grin, and even as bullshit is being shoveled into their mouths, and keep grinning as they chew that shit and swallow it, letting the sludgy stream slide down their throats. Now, I know I've said this already, but this actually weakens the character story and also it talks down to the reader. I hate that it keeps doing this therapy talk and this, like, I understand myself, but also I don't understand myself. Then Nolan and Waldo go upstairs where she takes his virginity and feels good about the way that she is using him. She then goes to a party with Nolan, and he's better at sex at this point. She's faking everything with him, though, because he's not exciting, he doesn't fulfill her, and he's just a tool for her to use until she finds something better than him. Waldo doesn't want to tell us what dance she is getting ready for because the details in this book are so slim that she can't even say, like, it's the senior dance at the end of semester where I'm about to graduate or whatever. So she's just getting ready for a nondescript dance at school. My notes here say, because why would it bother to describe anything when it's not gross or sex? But so she's getting ready for this dance, obsessing over dressing to get Mr. Corgi's attention despite him saying to leave him alone and not engage with her. Nolan, she's a control freak, so she has to bring him back to her. She has to be the one to have him submit to her. Nolan is there to take her, and he brought a corsage, and he says that he is a, and he's and it's said that he is a good boy. She talks about zoning out on Nolan when they're having sex, but she doesn't really care about him. He noticed that she was zoning out on him, and so since he was worried about her, he stopped having sex with her since then, but he really wants to, and he keeps making these puppy eyes at her because he's like not going to pressure her. He's just like a horny teenager that wants to have sex, but he doesn't want to like push her into having sex if she is not wanting to have sex, you know? At the dance, she then uses Nolan to make Corgi jealous, making out with him as soon as she sees Corgi, and her tactics work because the next scene, Corgi and Waldo are having sex in the bathroom, and he is apologizing for abandoning her and begging that he needs her in his life, and she is like, you may proceed. Because she's the one with power. She knows it, and she is entirely nonchalant about how much power she actually holds over this man. After the dance, Nolan drops Waldo off at home and says that he was worried about her because she just disappeared on him. She doesn't believe that he is actually worried about her, but says thanks anyway. He breaks up with her. She cries and doesn't understand why she would be crying because she didn't even like him. And you get this therapy talk for stuff that we never saw develop. Quote, look, I really like you, you know, he says. And at first, I thought that you were shy or hurt from somebody else, closed off. I figured that you'd take time to get to know, to drop your walls, but then I realized it's just not happening because you don't want your walls to drop for me. And I don't know why. And I tried guessing for a while, but I don't want I don't want to anymore. I realize that I don't need to know why. I'm a good guy, you know? And I don't want to waste my time and energy on someone who doesn't care about me the same way that I care about them. It's simple as that. That makes a lot of sense. We never get to see him actually try to get her walls down because this book doesn't really spend time developing relationships if that's not obvious at this point. It kind of just skips over things and then tells you how they are in order for it to do stuff like this. So it's just this whole thing with Nolan makes very little sense, has very little impact because it was just there to use Nolan as a tool eventually to get Corgi to come back after Corgi said no, and that really shouldn't have even worked from the way that Corgi exited the situation. But I can only imagine his home life has gotten worse to the point that he desperately just wanted to be wanted, and your girl here is always willing to offer that. Now, since the school dance, Corgi and Waldo are together again. He takes her on a date, says that he is a bad guy. He accepts that he is a bad guy because he is doing this, but he loves her, and she says, I love you back. After she graduates high school, she thinks about how fake everything is, including how the saying the words or hearing the words "I love you" from Mr. Corgi changed absolutely nothing about the way that she feels, and so she's like very disillusioned by everything. In fact, not only is she disillusioned from getting the words "I love you" out of him, she got everything she wanted, which is this man coming back to her and giving her his feelings, but she is actually bitter at him for going into what she wants. And while they're in rhythm, she is punishing him by trying to suck his bank account dry because she is resentful and she knows it and she wants to punish him. She spends her entire relationship with Mr. Corgi telling him that she wants for nothing, telling him to spend more time with his family, and then resents him for not knowing that that is not what she actually wants. Quote, I bite my tears down as I beg him to fuck me harder and harder and harder, secretly hoping that if he fucks me hard enough, he'll fuck the resentment right out of me. He never does. You're telling him that everything is fine. What the frick do you expect? Look, there are some people that can definitely like read you and be like, is something off? Is something. But also, there are plenty of people that if you keep covering it up for yourself and you don't want people to ask questions, then they are not going to ask questions because they don't want to invade when you don't want them to invade. It could be either, or it could just be that Mr. Corgi is absent minded and not, not that observant. This chapter doesn't even feel connected to who the characters are going forward. I mean, maybe Waldo, but Corgi is all of a sudden the sleazeball who doesn't feel like a mopey loser and he's sucking blood off of his fingers. This isn't whatever the book was before. This is just squarely getting into Punisher zone for Corgi to be the Mr. Stand-in for whoever the author wanted to punish with this book, rather than the thoughtful character that he could have or should have been. Quote, we rush upstairs to the bedroom. Corgi shuts the door and kicks off his pants and boxers. I tug his bare cock up between my legs so he can feel my heat. He reaches down to tease me with his middle finger. I'm on my period, I warn him. I don't care, he says. I want your blood on me. Who says this, by the way? Continuing. He brings his fingers to his mouth covered in blood and licks it up one side and down the other, then crouches down onto his knees and starts licking me. I lift my skirts to look at him. He smiles, blood smeared on his lips and cheeks like he is having the best meal of his life. It's not a creepy gesture, something out of a slasher film. It's something deeper, more substantial. It's evidence that I can cling to in the moments of doubt. This is how much he wants me, that he wants even my gross parts. Slap my face with it, I say. What? Slap my face with your bloody dick. Are you sure about that, Waldo? Do it. Slap me in the face with your bloody dick. And so he does. It makes a soft smack sound when it meets my cheek and the blood splatters onto my eyelids and forehead. Do it again, I say. So he does. Again, I say. So he does. There's something deep in me that wants this, to be slapped by a dick covered in my own blood. I want the small smack of pain, the flick of blood drops, the smell of metal. It's disgusting, but it's what I want. I don't want poems, quivering hands, longing looks, picnic blankets, and Gerbera daisies and dimly lit dinners. I want so much more. Something truer, uglier. I want to go to a shared place, shameless and foul enough that we can't turn back. That we're somehow united in it. That my mark on him is indelible. So this again is showing the power dynamic here where Waldo is in control. She knows that she is in control. And also the fact that she's like, I want to do things to him to make us tied together forever, which includes her predating on him to create that situation where he can technically never get away from her if she doesn't want, because she's got this situation that she caused to happen. Her continuation of how she wants bad and ugly things to happen is also a speech to her twisted and disgusting mind. Now their sex is interrupted by Gwen, Corgi's wife, getting home. Waldo hides in the closet and continues to talk about how she's on her period and she is bleeding into her hand. Quote, the pulse of an oncoming gush of blood swishes through my uterus, then through my cervix. I cup my hand underneath as the blood oozes out, gelatinous clumps and mucousy, goopy strings of it. I try to contain the slimy flow in my hand, but it slides through my fingertips and onto the carpet beneath me. Talking stuff like this and sex like this is also just reads to me try hard edgy, but Heather did the same thing while doing an underage story, and there are certain things where authors do them that don't feel sincere, and it's just shock, and that's what this feels like. It almost feels like a way to also be like, look at me stand out doing things that other people wouldn't do. Now Corgi is still in bed. His wife comes in a bit hot to trot. He tells her that he is not in the mood for sex, so she goes and showers, and Waldo sneaks out. Waldo is now the one breaking up with Mr. Corgi, saying that she is resentful, and despite her own expressions of how she hid her unhappiness from him on purpose, she is now saying that he should have known that she was unhappy this whole time. Quote, I'm not tired, I say to him. I'm resentful, or I was resentful, but I'm not anymore. It went away. Now I'm just nothing. I'm clear. But you haven't communicated any of that. You have to tell someone when you're upset or when you resent something that they're doing so that they have the opportunity to fix things. You saw that I was hurting, I said plainly, but you pretended you didn't because that would have made your life more difficult. Because then you would have had to actually do something about it. Rejection much? Maybe he really obviously didn't know anything was wrong because she was constantly saying like everything was fine. I mean, this is on par with a crazy teenager, so I'm not going to like ding it for that, but no, she's expecting too much that she is the unreasonable one here. At this point, it only looks like the book had them come back together so that Waldo could be the one to end it, putting since having Corgi end it put him in the power position, and Waldo really doesn't like being the one to be dumped. So like if you look at Randy from the beginning, she was the one that said we need to break up first. When Nolan said, hey, I don't want to pursue you anymore, she cried because she was no longer in the power position. She was not the one to dump him. And so in this, she was still obsessed with Corgi because he had dumped her, and so she needed to get him back so that she could be the one to dump him and be in the power position. I've seen so many girls who fetishize and get off on degrading men and especially making them plead, and it being in conversation with women whose favorites books in romance novels are where the man is on his knees begging, and it is just cruelty. It's not seeing someone as a partner, it's not seeing someone as human, it's wanting to reduce someone to sniveling so that you can cut them more because you don't see them as whole people, because you see them as a target for your anger or resentment or past experiences. And that makes you a villain, in my opinion. Victims can be villains, by the way. Often victims do become villains. So the fact that somebody was once a victim does not negate the fact that they then go on to abuse other people. So now that Waldo has reduced Corgi to begging and telling her how amazing she is and that she has all of the power, she feels nothing and thinks that he is pathetic. Of course she does. This just comes off as some feeble way to write about power that she wishes she had over a true situation, the author had over a true situation, and to punish someone. But it doesn't really fit with the characters and who they are and where they've come from. Even her stalker obsession has just sort of disappeared so that she could punish this man. Like, a switch went off and she's gotten what she's wanted. The following bit are just text messages of Corgi begging and saying that he'll break up with his wife and how she was never good anyway, and none of this feels accurate to who Corgi was presented as before. So this chapter is just BS saying that his marriage always sucked and she agrees to meet with him in a hotel, though she is uninterested in him. At the hotel, she's excited to see how much more he grovels. He arrives sobbing, saying that he broke it off with his wife, who who was confused, and then he falls asleep without them having sex because he's just upset. At first, they had been staying at a nice hotel when they first met up, but he doesn't have the money to keep them put up in like the Captain Cook Hotel, so now they're in some mid-grade hotels, not La Quintas, even like under La Quintas, which I think La Quintas are. I mean, I'm a normal person, so La Quintas are nice to me, but I know a lot of people that are like poo poo on La Quinta, whatever. Whatever. So they're just staying in lower grade hotels, and quote, I lie that it's kind of charming, even if I stare at the questionable stain in the shape of Texas on the tattered burgundy carpet. He calls me out for lying, and we laugh, and I say that even with my white trash background, this is unsavory, and we laugh some more. Every time she has a chance, she comes off as not sincere when she says that she is poor. Bro makes 80K a year minimally. That is, Mr. Corgi makes 80K minimally a year. How does he not have enough money to stay in anything better than a dingy hotel? They are also just lying on each other and living in the hotel for a while, and I guess neither of them have jobs anymore, even though Corgi should still be going to work because his breaking up with his wife wouldn't actually end his occupation as a teacher? Quote, Corgi looks at me and says something romantic. I'm so happy that we're together. You make me feel better than I ever felt before. Or, I love you so much that it scares me. And I swallow his words, let my body fully digest them, and get high on them, and then regurgitate them right back at him so that he can do the same. Boxes of his stuff from home are now in the hotel room. Corgi says his wife put it all out on the lawn and threatened that he needed to come and get it or forfeit it. He says that this is all a new start at life, and he has even picked up working on his novel again because he's got a fresh start to life. Waldo is disillusioned now that she is seeing this guy be happy, that he is seeing this guy maybe get on his feet. He doesn't feel like a loser anymore. And also, I think what is lost here for Waldo was the charm of the taboo, was the charm of being the other woman, was the charm of there being drama, because now it's just becoming routine. Now she doesn't have to try to win Corgi over from his family that she wishes she had been a part of, but she just has him. There is no drama with the wife, there is no sneaking around, and so it is just boring. And she has this guy who has given up everything for her, so it's just boring. Waldo then visits her mom. Her mom is doing absolutely great. Went to Love Addiction Anonymous, describes all of her behaviors and how she was in a bad situation because she was love addicted, looking for validity. But now she knows what it was and she can be healthy, and this is a reflection of everything that Waldo has been doing this entire time. We're not going to have any acknowledgement of that, but I don't think that it's meant to acknowledge that. I think it's just there for like the reader to be on the nose for the reader. And it's kind of insane that Waldo doesn't acknowledge it when she's been doing therapy talk this entire time so far anyways. So then Corgi and Waldo move into a new apartment together where Corgi is laying out all of his stuff. They're having sex regularly, and Waldo isn't really into it the first time and actually tells him that she's not really into it, and he complies. Quote, Hey, be with me, he says. Sorry, I say, pulling away. Not feeling it? It's okay if you aren't. I'm not, really. That's totally fine, no pressure. Thanks, I say. But there is. From me. The first time not wanting to have sex is a relationship milestone no one wants to stumble over. I certainly don't. Is this how it happens? You don't feel it once and then. See, so she is disillusioned now that it's all just like she's gotten exactly what she wants and it's getting quiet again. And this kind of goes back to her comments about Nolan and talking about how bland and boring functional lives are. And I'm not saying that this situation is functional, but it is more functional than previous because they are no longer mistress, they're no longer student teacher either, and they now have their own place to kind of get into their own rhythm. Yeah. Later, she tries to work herself up in order to have sex with him because she sees it as a problem that she doesn't want to have sex. He's not pressuring her. She just thinks that this is a bad thing for a relationship and I should want to have sex. Quote, I think about asking him to touch me again, to at least try to get my body revved up, but my body doesn't want to be. It wants to be here limp and quiet, and something about that terrifies me. He's not pressuring her. She's just trying because she feels bad about the loss of romance that she is feeling, and it's not happening. They continue to coexist together. He's telling her about things that he's excited about. She doesn't really care. She continues to not tell him what she wants, is bored with things, but that's pretty much most of what's going on. She's seeing what normal is after growing up in chaos, and quote, the mundanity is crushing. The routinization of domestic life is excruciating. A never ending pile of bland logistics and interchangeable exchanges each day bleeding into the next, nothing differentiating them. The boredom kickstarts her shopping addiction again, and she also applies for manager at Victoria's Secret and gets it. She considers talking to Franny again, but decides against it after she was the one who blew Franny off for months until their friendship basically became nothing. Quote, I even consider asking Franny to meet up, but I don't. Don't want to reignite something that's done. She's been reaching out pretty regularly at the start of the summer, and I'd blow her off. And then she'd reach out a little less regularly, and I'd blow her off, and then she just stopped reaching out at all. It's funny. I thought our friendship would end drastically. The insults that we'd been saving for years shot back and forth, tears and snot streaking our faces, but instead, the ending has been uneventful, petering out with almost no noise at all. Maybe that's just how you know it's really an ending. Maybe it's more like shame that you'd come crawling back after you blew her off, that you're not going to go after her, but you won't say that. Waldo and Corgi are having sex again, but she doesn't want it. She wants it. She says that she wants it, but she's not communicating anything about how she feels lost, how she feels disinterested and just dead-minded. She is also just hates what she thinks this relationship is now, which is not exciting. Quote, whoa, baby, says Corgi. What's whoa? I want to scream. Nothing's whoa about this. You're not whoa. I'm not whoa. Both of us together are not whoa. This is boring, sad, vanilla, tired sex because we're boring, sad, vanilla, tired people. All it took to get here doesn't matter. The forbidden love, the age gap, the broken marriage, the casualties, none of it matters. We're not special. We're just two people who were brought together because of how fucking lost we both were. Like, she's just not into it because there's no drama involved. And she literally says that. She was only into him because she could cause drama. She felt excited because of the drama. She's supposed to head home now for dinner with Mr. Corgi, but she's disgusted by his needs and wanting to be around her, so instead, she paints her nails and cleans her room at her mom's house to leave him waiting on her. Quote, I dropped my phone into my lap, repelled by it, repelled by him, by his neediness, by his teetering self-esteem, so conditioned on my adoration of him, an adoration that is rapidly waning, partially due to his dependence on it. It's a dizzying loop of a catch-22, and I'm a hypocrite. Just months ago, I was the pathetic one, desperate and maddeningly needy, my well-being solely dependent on how responsive he was to me that day. And now here I am, not granting him the reassuring response that he needs, letting him worry, letting him panic, while I sit here painting my toenails. Sorry, I text finally, the exclamation mark simultaneously meager and pointed. Heading out in a sec. I don't give him an explanation. No worries at all. Glad you're okay. I'll put on some salmon. Waldo's mom is now talking about her unhealthy childhood and man detox. Quote, what's no contact? Basically, it's 60 days where I can't speak to, text, meet up with, sleep with, or engage in any way with a man that I've been sexually or romantically involved with in the past. Even if nothing's ever happened with that guy, I just feel like something could. I can't interact with him either. Nothing. No contact. Mom apologizes for being a bad mother all of this time and that she is going to try to be better for Waldo. Waldo is like, you can't blame yourself too much for it. You were a kid in a bad situation when you had me, and they bond. Mom seems to be better than she has been mentally, emotionally. It's not going to last. Waldo knows it's not going to last, but she goes along with it anyway. Corgi is now upset that Waldo is late, and she finally tells him that he may not be what she's looking for. He gets upset by this. Quote, fuck! He yells. I knew this would happen. I knew that this would happen. You're a pursuer, a chaser. You want and you want and you want, and you're fucking ravenous about it. It consumes you. But then once you get what you want, you don't want it anymore. It's the most immature thing about you. Well, I'm sorry I'm so immature. I guess that happens when you date an 18-year-old. He smirks, a scorned, ridiculing smirk, and bites his lip, biting down his anger. Right, of course. Convenient, isn't it? You're an adult when you want me to leave my family, and you're a kid when you want to leave me. They apologize, hold each other, and know that this won't be their last fight. Now, end of summer, Franny is having a going away party because now that it's the fall, everyone is splitting up with their plans. Her boyfriend is going to Romania to do a religious mission because Franny and her boyfriend are both Mormon. I don't know if I ever said that before, but they are. She is going to BYU. They've gotten engaged and they have their marriage plans all figured out. Waldo doesn't have any future figured out, but she lives by the seat of her pants, so it doesn't really matter. Corgi has given up on writing again. Waldo can't be bothered to encourage him because, she already got everything to do with him, so she's like, I'm not interested. Corgi sets up a treat at his house. So Corgi sees that they're having trouble and he wants to try to figure this out with her because, he's invested in her. He sees her emotional distance. So he's trying whatever he thinks he can do. Man has made all the wrong decisions by pursuing this. But Corgi sets up a surprise at his house, giving gifts to Waldo that end in a trip to Hawaii so that they can both relax, recoup, and he apologizes for how weird things have been between them lately. Waldo is not convinced that this will fix anything, but pretends that she is happy anyway. Now, it's not surprising that she is not convinced this will fix anything because she doesn't want to fix anything. She is checked out. And in a relationship, regardless of anything else, if one partner does not want to be a part of it anymore, there is nothing that you can do. And that is not just this sort of relationship. If a parent decides they don't want to be in a relationship with their child anymore, if they don't want to be a parent anymore, there is nothing that child can do as much as that child may want their parent. If a friendship falls through, if one person decides that they don't want to be friends with you anymore, even if you care about them, there is nothing that you can do. So, dude can do everything. She's out here going, this isn't going to fix anything because she already knows that she is checked out of this relationship and it's only a matter of time until she leaves, and she knows that she is going to leave. So but like everything else, she doesn't tell him what her thoughts are, she doesn't tell him what her feelings are, and so she acts excited about this trip. And they go to the airport waiting to board, and she sees herself in the bathroom. She sees herself to the bathroom mirror to go and freshen up as they're calling, people to start boarding the plane. They've got a bit of time because their group's not seating yet. And as she looks in the mirror, she decides that she does not want to go on this trip. Quote, only I can't. And beyond that, I don't want to because my body knows more than I do. My body's instincts are loud, and they are right, and they're appropriate and reasonable, and they are not a nuisance. They are wise. They are giving me all of the information I need. I put my hand on my heart, my tender, sensitive, strong, roaring heart, and I thank it. This is trying so hard to be like thoughtful or deep and be like, trust your gut feeling, girl. But this book has also propped that up against raping a man and then saying, well, your body knows what your body wants when you're raping somebody. You can't be like, trust your instinct, trust your body knows best and it is wise. Your body has been having you stalk this man for the entirety of a year that you have been in his class. Also, your feelings can lie. I mean, do you get gut feelings that are true sometimes? Yes. Do you get gut feelings or emotional responses that are not true to reality sometimes? Yes. You can never be like, this body of mine is wise. And also, we never acknowledge the insanity that she has done this entire time. She's trusting her body to tell her what's right when this entire time her body has said, jump in that window, break into that house, masturbate to this guy who is unattainable for her. Oh, I need to go shopping because I have needs. I need to sleep with that guy because I need to feel something. All of those were her body talking to her. And she is now using that as the closing sentiment of this of, yes, I need to listen to my body because my body is wise. I understand that. I think the thesis of this was that she needed to, I'm assuming the theme or a theme of this was that your gut instincts say something, and maybe she should have throughout this book used gut instincts throughout to sort of recommend, and then everything she did going against her gut instincts ended up hurting her, and so then you could have that in the end. But that's not what happened here. And in fact, this goes against the entirety of what we saw in this book. Now, rather than saying anything to Mr. Corgi at all, as he is texting her that, their group is being called, is she okay, blah, 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 she says absolutely nothing to him. She just leaves him ghosted in the airport when she walked off. And then she goes home, and her mom is actually getting it on with Tony, the boyfriend, who she wasn't supposed to be seeing for at least 60 days. And so she's super pissed because she's like, yeah, my mom is a fucking liar, but what's new? My mom is always a fucking liar. So then she leaves, and she gets in her car to drive to Seward by herself with her mom and Corgi calling her. And she's like, I don't want for anything. I just want to be alone. And she tosses her phone into the back seat, basically. And it's just like, girl, you're doing all of this to cause drama, which is why you're content at the end of this book. And yes, she does say that she is content driving to Seward by herself while she is being called by her mom and Corgi, because she just caused more drama. And that is what drives her. She doesn't care about people. Everybody are tools. She just cares about the adrenaline junkie, which kind of goes back, I think, to her talking about how she grew up on YouTube videos that were a mixture of horrible things and shallow things. Anyway, that is the end of this book, by the way. Now, the genre slash audience, adult literary fiction, simple as that. Hook slash first impressions. And the first 20% were introduced to Waldo, a 17-year-old girl who is desperate to find a real connection with others while also hating humanity, including herself. Now, that may be a self defeating purpose if you hate humanity but want to connect with humanity. Nobody said teenagers are smart. RIP. She sees everything as superficial, from the way that she dresses and talks and acts, everything about her mother and what her mom says to be superficial, and everything about existence to be superficial. This is not surprising considering her mom is such a liar. She grew up getting used to her mom being a liar, and when you're a child and your most trusted person is always lying to you and letting you down, it it's not really surprising when you don't believe in the truth of anything or anything having any value, and also believing that you don't have any value because your mother never really treated you as if you had any value. Your mother treated men as if they carried all the value. When she sees Mr. Corgi, her creative. Now, she's got all of these issues with superficiality and lack of meaning and purpose, and she sees Mr. Corgi, her creative writing teacher, and thinks that he is different from everybody else that she knows. He is not trying to be something that he's not. He calls himself a loser in front of class, which is not anything that her mother would do, that any of the guys in her class would do, that any of the dudes on Instagram or TikTok would ever do, since everybody is trying to project them living their best life. This guy is honest because he says he's a loser. And so that sparks her first interest. The way that I anticipated this to go at 20% is that she tries to bring her fantasy into reality by making moves on Mr. Corgi, and as historian and excellent biographer Brian Masters says, quote, reality poisons the spring of fantasy, whereas fantasy, when it erupts into the real world, brings destruction in its wake. So that was my anticipation for this story. So while she chases after her fantasy that Mr. Corgi can be her authentic, she watches him have a happy life and a happy wife, a child. She is actually going to bring destruction to him and herself. Authenticity isn't fake, happiness isn't fake, but the one that she is worshiping is not the thing that she is imagining it to be, the fantasy she's imagining it to be. Language, cynical. Actually, it feels very immature because of that. And I think there's a large difference, and I think that's part of the largest difference between My Dark Vanessa and Half His Age. Overall, the writing feels needlessly vulgar and attempting to be edgy, like the first time someone's attempted to break out of being a child star or something, or to stand out as like, oh, well, I'm raw. Look at my raw language. I'm unlike anybody else talking about this because I will talk about it raw. Everybody else is a pussy. Or it's halfway to shock writing like Nick Cutter writes, or anybody else in the splatterpunk area. It's pointless beyond its attempts to elicit a reaction via vulgarity. Not only that, but there is just so much aggression in the way that it is written that I think it has more to do with having given up. Everything sucks, everything is worthless, pointless even, my life is fucked, so why not fuck yours up too, is the sense that it gives. Quote, my phone pings. I swipe it open before the ping is halfway through. It's Randy fucking Jellup checking in because it's been a while. AKA putting out his feelers if I'd still be down to fuck. I guess Tiny Tits from Winter Formal doesn't put out. I don't respond. The customer in front of me pays. I wolf down a pretzel and suck down the lemonade on my drive home. I chuck Mom's sticky note in the trash and dump my shopping bags on my bed. I try on the top. It doesn't look as cute in the honesty of my bathroom mirror. This is the mirror that's seen me a million times before, that knows exactly who I am, that knows that I am not an off the shoulder top girl. I try on the shoes. Both pairs look stupid. I smear honey oil into my hair. I look greasy. I wash my face for a clean shaven canvas to put more shit onto. I squirt 2 pumps of foundation onto my wrists and smack it onto my cheeks with a sponge. It's orange and patchy. That's how it all comes across. Just angry, cynical, and it transfers into Waldo's desire to just ruin everything because why not? It's all pointless. Blow it up. Like it's Arthur Fleck style. Just fuck it all. She doesn't apply herself in school either. She says that, and she also cares about nothing, cares about no one, not even herself, and just says burn it all down, it's all temporary, let's just do whatever the fuck we want. It shows, this mindset shows in the verbiage that is used in everything. Also, we get random lines like, quote, my heart dropped out of my asshole. This is not good writing. I mean, maybe you can maybe you can make the argument that this is like a teenager expressing themselves, and so it's like bad, but just it's not. If there was some redeemable quality about this, maybe, but I just have a hard time because it's so bad. Descriptions. There is little to no description to the point that it feels like a movie script more than anything. There's also like 80 chapters in this less than 300-page book, which also feels more like a movie script. And that's unfortunate. It lacks so much description that at times it's confusing and you don't even know what characters are entering a room or a scene or where we are. No wonder it complains that there is no culture or art in Anchorage because it can't even do the bare minimum to describe what Anchorage looks like in any capacity. World building. I'm not sure why this book chose to be placed in Alaska, so now we're going to rant on this a little bit more. As someone from Alaska who lived there for 10 years, a couple of things stood out to me. One, no description of Anchorage anywhere. The buildings, the streets, like the most you get is her saying she goes to East High, which my sister went to East High. No description of the different malls, the Sears Mall, the Fifth Avenue Mall, the Diamond Center Mall, how they're different, what, like, which side of town you were on. Did she live in Muldoon? Did she live in Spinard? Did she, like, it matters. But there's no description of the town, the mountains, the shore, the boats, nothing that actually makes it Alaska. She brings up that her mom was working at Safeway when in Anchorage it's actually Cars. Cars is a subsidiary of Safeway, but generally when you're in Alaska, you're dealing with Cars in the same way that when you're in Florida, you're dealing with Publix, or you have Fred Meyer's on the West Coast and Kroger's on the East Coast. Kroger's and Fred Meyer's are the same company, but they're differently named depending on where you are in the country. Meanwhile, she also says, quote, she always swears that we have to take a road trip to Seward because we took one once when I was 4, and apparently we fished and laughed and went barefoot in the glacial stream. Apparently we ate pimento cheese sandwiches and went on a walk in a rich neighborhood and pointed out all the 2-story houses that we swore we'd live in someday. Apparently it's Mom's favorite memory of us together. I don't remember it. Road trip to Seward? I guess. Okay, let me inform you a little something about Seward. There is no rich neighborhood of 2-story houses in Seward. Seward is a town of less than 3,000 people. It is a fishing town, but that's pretty much what it is. And it looks like this. Here are some pictures from Google Maps that are fairly recent. Now, that's not saying that there are no 2-story houses. It is very spread out, and most of the bigger buildings are going to be closer to the shore, and they may be lodges or something. They may be apartments, but Seward does not have rich neighborhoods. And Seward, you also don't just take a random road trip out there. It's like 3 to 4 hours away from Anchorage. So you don't just go like, oh, I'm going to take a day trip to go and like wander around Seward to look at rich people. There are rich people in Anchorage, by the way. There are rich people in the mountains of Anchorage, by the way. But one thing that is very common in Alaska is that everything is pretty well spread out, especially the homes. Now, not always, because we lived in the last neighborhood that I lived in, the houses were fairly close together, but you still have your own yard. Muldoon was a bit tight packed, but the buildings on like the UAA were very spread out and you were walking miles from side to side of the whole place. And a lot of places do look like this. Now, maybe not exactly like this. A lot of the buildings in downtown Anchorage also have excessive room between them, and there's really no alleyways because buildings are not that closely put together. Which, yeah, I've read another book where somebody placed the beginning of it in Alaska, and they talked about alleyways and like tin pan Tin Pan Alley houses, like tin shacks, and like the homeless going south for the winter to warm up. And it's just like, you cannot go further south. Anchorage is the furthest south without going onto the islands, and you're not going to get on the islands as a homeless person and somehow be warm during the winter seasons. Like, you cannot just go to lower California. So a lot of things just feel like taking what people know about California specifically, maybe, and then applying it to Anchorage, which doesn't, and then just subtracting culture, which doesn't work. Also, this book is set in winter for the most part, and there is no description, hardly any description of snow, ice, of defrosting your car, of unfreezing your car, of having to unbury your car, of just how annoying that is, or the use of the constant blankets of snow, fresh blankets of snow, or her having to unbury her own freaking car by herself as another thing to make it feel very isolated. Like, there are so many options for having used the setting to exacerbate, not exacerbate, to bring more attention to how alienated and isolated she feels, but she doesn't use any of them because she doesn't describe the setting at all. Characters. Waldo gave me vibes like this is the female version of the main character from the Incel book that I read a year or two ago. I definitely recommend checking that video out if you haven't read that book or checked out that book, because I think it's an interesting comparison with mindset. It's a book with nihilism, seeking out fulfillment in others, hating the world and being detached from it, and specifically others, but still seeking others to give validation and meaning. However, as the story goes on, Waldo comes off as more sexually obsessed and vulgar in the same way as Celeste from Tampa. She will do whatever she wants, take whatever she wants, cross any boundaries that she wants, and I was honestly expecting her to grind on the school table while masturbating to Corgi at some point in the same way that Celeste had. And to me, some of this reads like the idea of female empowerment that some people think, where it's just like being super out there with sex, and that somehow equals female empowerment or shows female empowerment, but that's not at all what that means. I'm not entirely sure where this nutty archetype actually comes from, other than twisted versions of and lack of understanding. But there are messed up women like this, so I'm not going to say that this character type does not exist. I'm just like, why do we not acknowledge that this character is a problem? As it stands, Waldo comes off as a girl who doesn't feel like she has much power in her life and never has. She considers her economic position to be out of her control and uses shopping obsessively as a small manner of control, and even her pursuit of Corgi is out of a sense of control, and you see that in the way that she interacts with and talks about Corgi and how she wants control, even the time when she is sexually assaulting him and she is telling him what to say while she is assaulting him. It is a way to gain control over her otherwise what she feels like a non-controlled world. She wants him to do what she wants him to do, even telling him what to say and asserting herself on him. She knows that it's about control. She says that it's about control multiple times, so it can't be overlooked that that is part of the reason behind why she acts the way she does. She talks about how poor she is, but she is always having never-ending shopping sprees without mention of credit card debt or unpaid bills or worry that any of her utilities are going to be shut off. There are no consequences to her constant spending or any of her actions, really, the way that she treats Nolan, the way that she treats Fanny, the way that she breaks into her teacher's house. None of it. And then you have sections of this book where she talks about buying Sephora and Michael Kors during her shopping sprees, which just further make it more difficult for me to accept that she is as poor as she continually says that she is. And that's on a part-time at Victoria's Secret. So what, you're making like $15 to $17 an hour if you're lucky, and you're working like 20 hours a week, and somehow you're doing all of this, and you don't have credit cards, and you don't have credit card debt, and you don't have your home in any sort of danger. It was not believable. Additionally, she is obsessed with looking poor and thinking people think about her being poor all the time. She's projecting constantly the judgment that she's being perceived for her economic status and that people will reject her for it, which likely comes from feelings of inferiority that her relationship with her mother has caused her, and feeling that she will never be good enough. She's only kept because she can't be gotten rid of, is what she believes, and not because people want her. And that's why that phrase comes up not only with her talking about her mom, but why it means so much when Mr. Corgi says that he is keeping something because he wants it, not because he can't get rid of it. Waldo's mother, the trailer trash stereotype, had her daughter at 16 in school. Dad left, raised single, with a revolving door of boyfriends, none of which were ever inappropriate with Waldo somehow. Um, they do beat mom. She wears all kinds of underwear and lingerie for her daughter, chain smokes. However, despite her mom being referred to as smelling like cigarettes, we never actually see her smoking or referred to as pulling out a cigarette. So that is an interesting choice. With the relationship Corgi has with his wife, I don't understand why she ever agreed to have a teenage girl over, because we don't really get any sense of like what type of person the wife is or why the wife would agree to that. And maybe it could have happened where the wife was out of town for something surprise, or there were other ways that this could have been done. It just doesn't make any sense. They should have asked for both parents to come over, if anything, because Waldo showed maybe concerned child things because all of her grades kind of suck, and now she is engaging in creative writing, and so they want to encourage, they want to meet mom, they kind of want to get to know this student and help this student, and the wife is caring, and she's like, okay, I'm totally fine with that. And then maybe Waldo wouldn't tell her mom about this, so she could just go over because she wouldn't want mom to be there, because it's more about getting to be near Corgi. Options. What I'm saying is there were options that were not explored, that were not developed, and that made all of the characters shallow. I also wish that there had been more interaction with everything that the character describes. Almost all of her relationships are just told to us how she thinks about them, how cynical she is, and we don't actually see how these relationships happen very often. Overall, I don't think the self awareness of the character worked, because she is talking about how she is doing what she is doing, which is destructive, as she is doing it, which means she could stop herself. And we've got nowhere to go from the beginning to the end because she already knows what she's doing, and it's just 300 pages of her doing exactly what she knows she's doing while she's saying she's doing it. Plot. This story is about a girl who pursues a relationship with a teacher after honing in on him because he gives her validation that she feels is more authentic, and it also has this sense of danger that causes her adrenaline to spike, and that's what gives her some sort of feeling, some sort of rush. And she really is an adrenaline chaser if you look at the way that she talks, how she grew up, and why she pursues Corgi, and why she eventually dumps Corgi. I think it's meant to show Waldo as an imperfect, damaged person pursuing something harmful as a consequence to her upbringing, but it also shows her as a perpetrator of harm in her forcefulness and coercion that she uses on Corgi, and then eventually her blackmailing. Where I think that this plot actually struggles is there is no change going on in Waldo to any extent. She is self aware in the beginning, opening the first chapter with sex that she immediately dumps from a non connection, but there is no difference shown between why she goes for Corgi versus other previous boyfriends that she has had. There is nothing that suggests why Corgi is different and elicits this deranged, obsessive response out of her when other relationships never caused that in her. And she's not even surprised by her own obsession. It just happens. Not only that, but considering how deranged she was, how did no one in her life notice anything about her? Like, even that she was happy when she was being pursued or when she was pursuing this guy. That may be a comment on the disconnect of peers, similar to how Bret Easton Ellis works his stuff in his work, with people not really paying attention to each other and everybody in that universe being superficial to the point of not even knowing each other's names. But no one even notices or interacts with her about her behavior, or rather, than it being a plot or a theme related, it just seems like the majority of things in this book happen because the author says so. Why does he change from we need to stop this to getting on with her at the party when she is making out with some other dude? Like, he could have just walked away. I'm not saying Waldo or anyone in this book has to change for an arc of the story. A lot of stories just show someone's self destruction or a peek into their lives. But considering the inciting incident and focus of this story is the pursuit of an inappropriate relationship for validation, and there is nothing that changes it in the end either, she just gets bored and fucks off, it could have just shown in how she thrill seeks to the destruction of everybody else's lives. And that would start with Randy, and we'd see it in Nolan, and we'd see it in Corgi, and we'd see it with her mom, and we'd see it with Franny, and we'd see it with everybody. So that could have been possible. This also would have made it make more sense why she was so obsessively primping herself. Oh yeah, and it could have given more context as to how she got with Randy. Like, was she the other woman with Randy as well? And she was constantly primping herself and believed people were fake because Randy was pretending to be with this other chick while cheating on her with her. And so she's like, yeah, everything is fake. Love is fake, blah, 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 blah. So it really doesn't matter. And he only got with her because of how much she primped herself, and that Randy would never actually be with her if he knew what she looked like without makeup on, because he is shallow, not because she is ugly. But like, that would just add layers to that. And then she would get more interest in Corgi when she saw that he was taken and just had that destructive behavior that she took over from other places. She could pursue then, becoming bored and disillusioned when he was all hers and that danger was gone. This would have also made it make more sense why she obsessively primps herself for him when in every other situation she criticizes her mom for doing just that. But this would have shown the reflexive cycle of her mirroring her mother against her previous opinion because she valued Corgi, or the feelings that Corgi gave her while she was pursuing, over herself. Like, there are ways to do this, and there are so many opportunities that this story could have taken to tell a story with complexity. And Waldo's perspective show no difference in her behavior and just coaxing along. The elements are all there, but they're not built into, and I'm not even sure if they're fully understood by the author. But that's just my looking at this. Because of the shallowness of the writing and the plot, it feels not only less sincere, but like a degraded copy of similar works that came before it with too many similarities. That while the experience expressed here is unfortunately not unique, this book doesn't present any new perspectives in it and ends up feeling like an off-brand version of somebody else's book that also tries to be super edgy to make it different. I also think that this book could have benefited by taking the developing relationship between Corgi and Waldo slower, allowing him to show consideration to her that her classmates or peers didn't get, which would have led to the cycle of her wanting to please him because it made her feel good. And then he made her feel good, so she wanted to make him feel good and get them good girl pats on the head, or because she was so focused on he's a loser and that's what's attractive about him, then focusing more on that and how she thinks he's humble and downtrodden and honest and authentic, and then allows her into that cycle of using people until she gets bored with them and then discards them because she has conquered them. It shows the messy complexity of the situation and also escalation as to why she does what she does and the destruction that she leaves in her wake. However, because the book never actually submits to anything or commits to anything and still just sees Waldo as the victim throughout the book and does not acknowledge any of her behaviors, the plot is underdeveloped, the character is underdeveloped, and the resolution of the book, where she just drives off because she's now causing drama for everybody and ghosting everybody, just feels like so much garbage. It's not free. And she's like, oh, my body tells me so much. I trust my body. Girl, you're going to get into more trouble. Now, I've already talked regarding themes. I've already talked about a lot of them throughout, so I'm not going to repeat those. Authenticity, connection with others, and you even have the relationship of how mother and daughter mirror each other even when they don't want to or aren't aware of it. But something that I do want to bring up is how this book is like the incel book, but for females. It's isolation, trying to solve the isolation by using others and fantasies, and nihilism, that everything is fake and people are tools, and that pursuit then creates discarded people whose lives are ruined, including your own, because you were so self-focused. And the incel book was actually better than this book because at the end of it, he realizes that women are people too, and they have their own problems, and he was making assumptions about people that weren't true, and also that he and others like him were in a dangerous position of believing that having sex will solve all of their problems, and it does not, and he wakes up to that. Overall, personally, this does not feel like a novel to me. It feels like a blueprint for a movie. From the short chapters, 88 in less than 300 pages, acting like scene breaks, to the lack of description, which would rely on visuals for, expressing the isolation or expressing the location or expressing who is in a scene, because a lot of times it would not tell you who character was talking to before they started talking. This book uses very few, if any, literary devices available to prose, which also makes sense when this writer has a background in film and TV. I just don't think that it did any of the work it needed to do in order to be a novel. Then there are also so many similar beats to My Dark Vanessa, the past tense part of it, that it was uncomfortable at times. My Dark Vanessa is a far better written book. I also think that this blurs the lines with what it is trying to do by using fetish phrases like half his age and the cover of Licking Fingers, where she is also the one in control in the entire book. And this is a book about this girl who is in control and seeks positions in which she is in control. And that is a constant throughout from my reading experience. With that said, this is definitely a book about power dynamics, but there is so little recognition of how predatory and pushy Waldo is strictly because she is 17 through part of it. That doesn't mean that Mr. Corgi didn't do anything wrong, but being 17 is not a get out of jail free card for crime or sexual assault, though it often seems like it is, because then people accuse you of defending statutory rape and ignore the girl wearing a man down as he is constantly saying no and tells him that what his lips say is different than what his body says and his body is more true, and also going after him when he is emotionally weak. If this position was swapped and you had a guy who saw a girl who was down on herself, isolated, alienated, low self esteem, was so obviously low self esteem, and he approached her and started telling her things to give her attention while she was low self-esteem, and then she suffered a major loss in the family, and so that's when they pounce to get physical, to give comfort. You would see that for what it is, as predation. But because it's a 17-year-old who does it to a 40-year-old, for some reason it is still his fault and she is forgiven all of what she's done. And I don't really understand why this book has so much defense against the sexual assault of this man. It is just completely ignored because she's 17, and they go, well, she's still a victim of her own impulses and he took advantage of her impulses. She took advantage of him as well. Okay, can we not ignore the sexual assault? That is the thing. I don't think this book meant to make Mr. Corgi look like a victim, mind you. I don't know what the book was actually trying to do either. I haven't really looked up discussions from the author, so I'm just telling you what was in the book as I read it. And I don't know much about what in here was inspired by personal experiences or not, other than I know that the author said that she was in an age gap relationship, but she was 18 and the other person was like in their 30s. So why did the author make this character 17? Other than, for me, it feels like a quick, get agreement on Waldo's side because she is technically a minor. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think this book was ambitious, but in its ambition to cover so many themes and also to include personal affects as well as introduce some fictitious ones, that it failed to address any of the themes that it was trying to, and it also expressed some confusing and even contradictory things, as well as having personal details. It crossed wires and never fully developed. On top of that, I get the sense that there is animosity towards a certain character because they were inspired by a real life trauma that happened, and it created an emotional outlet for the author, but this presented the character as a victim without power and turned Waldo into a sexual predator and the abuser in an act of revenge against somebody who did exist. So it was just somebody taken so far into victimhood so that revenge could be had, so that therapy could be had in writing, that Waldo became the perpetrator of abuse and the receiver of that action actually became the victim. Anyway, those are my thoughts on all of this. Let me know what yours are about this book, about the way that it is written, about the scenes. I know, spicy topic. I know, even spicier opinions. Let's be reasonable in the comments while talking about this, though. With that said, looking forward to the discussion. I've been looking forward to the discussion for a while because, while I didn't enjoy this book, I do think that there are some interesting things to discuss in the way that it is written. And with that said, have a great weekend and don't die.
To my children, Tommy, Annabelle, and Ike, if you forget everything else I said in the lifetime I had with you, I need you to remember these 3 things. 1. I believe a woman's love is the most powerful thing on this earth. It can start wars, end them, and change the devil himself into someone God might see worthy of giving a second chance. She don't owe this love to anyone. but she do carry it around with her so long as she is living, and to give it away is something special. This is why evil will do anything it can to pervert women's nature and destroy their innocence. Of every crime you might commit during your lifetime, be it of daring or necessity, for every defiance you may act out against God, government, or man, avoid harming the innocent, for the day that we become bloodthirsty beasts where love don't exist anymore is the day hell on earth has come. And as bad as it may seem at times nowadays, we ain't there yet. For this reason, minimize violence done to and by women. As givers of life, it's against their nature to do harm. Every act of violence done to them is meant to break their souls, turning what should be a giver of hope into a bitter black widow, destroying lives in the mercy of her care for no reason but to quiet the corruption of her own self. It is only when you come across these sorts of women that you should put them down. 2. Everything you do in your life will create consequences, both seen and unseen, reaching far beyond what you can imagine. Nothing you do exists solely within your arm's reach, and you'll never be able to anticipate what all your decisions will do. Think hard of every action you take, because you won't know how long your choices will stalk you. Be firm in knowing who you are outside of the noise, and live beyond the expectations or news or rumors of the day. 3. There ain't anything stronger than the family you build for yourself. Protect the ones you love with your life, and they'll give you theirs in return. Family ain't defined by blood, understand that. And for as strong as the bonds of your family are, know that you'll find just as much passion in the people who hate you. While you'll risk your life for the ones that you care about, those who find your existence to be an insult will risk themselves to put an end to their affliction. As cruel as it may seem, a man running on hate will stop at nothing until one of yous is dead. Don't let you be the ones taken from, be it by outlaw, lawmen, or anyone in between. The only one who'll be looking out for you is you and yours. Showing mercy to men who wouldn't show it to you is a costly mistake. Maybe there's another way to be, but in all my years, I ain't found a way around a man's seed for greed and pride. Sometimes I believe there ain't the ability for man to change at all, be it by lead or legislation. I ain't claiming to be right about nothing. On many things, I wish I hadn't the experience. But what I want is for my kids to live a life better than the one I did, and to avoid the hardships I went through while finding the truth and purpose and what matters more than all the gold in this country. It's my hope that by sharing the things I learned, my kids will be better than their old man ever was, and that what I done ain't what people remember me for, but who y'all are gonna become that'll be the legend of Bill Cassidy.